I raised the abandoned baby I found in the trash like a princess, until her biological parents came looking for her. That family also had an older brother and two younger brothers, and they got along very well. That same day, the abandoned baby, Song Ying, threw a tantrum, insisting on going back to be the family pet. All my years of tolerance and sacrifice were undone by that single meeting. With a heavy heart, I let her go. Later, she kept coming back for money, claiming it was rightfully hers. I reached my limit and proposed cutting ties for good. She knelt outside the door, begging for forgiveness. Just as my heart softened and I opened it, her brothers, who had been hiding in the shadows, rushed in. They ransacked my home and then killed me without mercy. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing before a pile of garbage. I turned away with contempt, yet I heard her cries, louder and more piercing than in my previous life. When I opened my eyes, my body was still trembling. Uncontrollably, the image remained burned into my mind, them wantonly smashing the furniture, laughing loudly, tormenting me, and then setting a fire before walking away without a care. In the cool autumn breeze, I pulled my wool coat tighter and let out a long, deep sigh. Heaven took pity on me and granted me a second chance. A baby's cry came from the garbage heap beside me. I turned to look. In a tattered swaddle, the infant's face was smeared with tears and snot. Years later, that same little face would beam with a radiant smile as I lay dying before it. Mother, you've had your share of a good life. Now it's my turn. I shook my head, turned away, but heard the baby crying heartbreakingly, her arms even breaking free from the swaddling cloth. Struggling to wave, I remained unmoved, quickened my pace, and only called the police after turning the corner. Yes, it's a baby girl. I don't know her. In my previous life, I thought it was a divine blessing, and immediately picked her up. Wrapping her in my coat, she has been frail since childhood, and I don't know how many nights I've spent by her bedside in the hospital. Later, whenever she got into trouble, I would recall the afternoon I met her, when the whole world had abandoned her, and she only had me, so I repeatedly helped her out of trouble and patiently taught her. Looking back now, many things were foreshadowed, and some connections were nothing more than ill-fated relationships. 2. Director Ding of the orphanage received me and said that the documents I provided had been reviewed and met the adoption criteria. MS, Song Mo, you mentioned you wanted a younger girl. I've selected a few candidates. You can meet them all first to see. Here are their personal profiles. Director Ding handed me a stack of files. As I flipped through the pages, I asked, are their family backgrounds all clear? This is what matters most to me right now. Before her family came looking for her, she was just willful, bad-tempered, uninterested in studying, and forming cliques at school, things I could still tolerate. But after her family showed up, our lives changed dramatically. That day, after finishing work at the company, I got home around 8 o'clock and heard laughter and chatter filling the villa. I pushed the door open with a puzzled expression, and Song Ying ran over. Mom, look, these are all my family. I looked around, a middle-aged couple in plain clothes with weathered faces, and 3 boys with a thuggish air about them. Seeing me frown in silence, her birth mother stepped forward and yanked up Song Ying's shirt. There's a birthmark right here on her waist, no mistake about it. Song Ying's fair, delicate skin was exposed. The boys' gazes instantly snapped toward her, and I hurriedly pulled her shirt back down. Mom, look how much we resemble each other. Yes, I've finally found my real parents. On Song Ying's 18th birthday, I told her the truth that she wasn't my biological child and promised that if she wanted to find her birth parents, I would help her. But when it all happened so quickly, I must admit, I wasn't prepared. Listening to her affectionately calling them Mom and Dad, I felt a moment of disorientation. I sat on the sofa, collected myself, and then, coming back to the present, I looked at the cheerful group before me and spoke calmly. Back then, she was abandoned, wasn't she? I enunciated the word abandoned with particular clarity. I knew saying this would undoubtedly wound Song Ying, but in that moment, I was more like a helpless child in a fight, lashing out recklessly to expose my opponent, desperate to gain some ground. I didn't expect them to be completely calm. Oh, back then, our family was really struggling. We couldn't afford to raise her, so we had to give her a chance to go to a good family, and now everyone is happy. Isn't that right? Otherwise, with 4 kids, there wouldn't even be enough food to go around. I interrupted him, judging by age, she's neither the oldest nor the youngest. I want to know why you chose to give her up. Was she the one you liked the least? Mom, Song Ying's eyes welled up with tears. Please, don't say any more. The couple exchanged a glance, stammering, thinking they really couldn't bring themselves to say it. Back then, they simply thought she was a worthless girl. There weren't any grand reasons. No, no, no. We loved her. She was our favorite. That's precisely why we didn't want her to suffer a hard life with us. A boy can be raised rough, but she was our treasure. The woman spoke with such heartfelt sincerity that Song Ying was immediately moved. She hugged her and said, so that's how it was, bold enough to say it and bold enough to believe it. They really are cut from the same cloth. The eldest boy stepped forward, gently stroking Song Ying's hair. I've always dreamed of having a little sister to cherish and protect. No one will ever dare to bully her. Song Ying blinked her tear-reddened eyes, looking at him, and choked out, I've always envied others for having a brother, never expecting that I would have one too. I have a brother now. I rubbed my throbbing temples, imagining the scene of Xiao Yanzi and Xiao Jian recognizing each other. Song Ying wasn't lying when she said she wanted a brother. She used to go around calling young men from the streets her brothers during middle school, some of whom even brought to her home. At that moment, the two younger brothers also squeezed over, each expressing, from now on, you are our most cherished sister, and we will protect you together with our older brother. It's like a dream come true. Song Ying stammered excitedly. She usually liked to read some family pet novels where the whole family doted on one person. I joked, isn't it enough to have your parents pamper? But she retorted, what's the fun in that? It's only beautiful when brothers and younger brothers dote on you. If not, uncles or cousins would do too. Now, she has finally gotten her wish. That very night, she was going to leave with them. It happened so suddenly. The thought of my daughter, whom I had raised for nearly 20 years, leaving me was as painful as having a piece of my heart cut out. I told the maid to stop her, but she struggled free, shouting, why won't you let me go back to my own home? I'm going to call the police. Xiao Ying, I'll arrange for them to stay at a hotel. Once I've confirmed everything, we can sit down and talk this through properly. All right, my tone was almost pleading. You once said you wouldn't stop me from going back to my own home. You wouldn't go back on your word, would you? I just want the warmth of a family. I was greatly shocked. Haven't we given you the warmth of a family all these years? But you've always controlled me. My brothers and I were just talking about games and anime. It was so much fun, and Mom and Dad just said that when I go back, I can do whatever I want, giving me enough freedom. While I stood there stunned, the family, hand in hand, broke through the obstacles and ran outside. What a stirring and moving scene. The servant looked at me. Shall we give chase? I shook my head weakly. 3. The children selected by Dean Ding ranged in age from 3 months to 2 years old. I looked at each one, unable to make a decision. At that moment, I suddenly noticed a little girl in the front yard, neatly dressed and with a small flower in her hair. Occasionally glancing into the office, noticed that I had spotted her. She immediately lowered her head and ran off. What's that? Director Ding followed my gaze and said, ah, it's Xiao Shui. She's already 3 years old. I nodded and looked away. Director Ding also said, this child is so unfortunate. Her mother died during childbirth, and her father passed away last year while heroically jumping into the river to save someone. I was deeply moved and stood up, putting down the documents. I'll go take a look. Xiao Shui was sitting on her small bed, seeing me come in. She hurriedly jumped down and stood up straight. Auntie Song, she called me softly, but didn't dare to look at me. How do you know I'm Auntie Song? I crouched down, finding her nervous and shy demeanor quite amusing. She pulled out a piece of paper from under her pillow. It's an interview with me, on the inside pages of a financial magazine. You can read already. I asked in surprise. She shook her head, her face turning even redder, and pointed at my photo. I asked Teacher Zhang. She said the impressive lady's surname is Song. When I heard them say you were coming yesterday, I thought they were just kidding. Oh, and how did you know I was an impressive person? Looking at the photos here, I see most of them are men, so you must be really impressive for them to respect you enough to take these pictures of you. I remembered what Song Ying said when she saw my photo in the magazine. This suit makes you look older and doesn't flatter your waistline. It's not a good look. I never expected the same photo would help me attract a little fan. I laughed for a good while, then teased her on purpose. So, you dressed up so nicely today. were you waiting for me? She fumbled with the flower in her hair, flustered. I just wanted to see you for a moment. I picked her up in my arms. Let's go, you can see me every day from now on. For as Dean Ding saw us off, a police car was parked at the entrance. The police officer hurried over with the baby girl found near the trash heap. Explaining the situation to Director Ding, Song Ying had stopped crying and was staring straight at me. I stared coldly back at her. Xiao Shui noticed this and suddenly let go of my hand. I looked down. What's wrong, Auntie Song? It's okay, I know you all want a baby, but I'm not a baby anymore. If you want to take this baby back, that's fine too. My eyes welled up, and I held her tightly. You'll always be mommy's baby. I no longer gave Song Ying even a glance. Little Shui is so young, yet she's already been through so much. She's a sensitive soul. Director Ding says she always lets the other children have their way and never fights for anything. A child like that, if she doesn't receive more love and care, is bound to face a lot of heartache on her journey to adulthood. Also, your mother has thought of a name for you. You must remember it. What is it? Little Shui's eyes sparkled, brimming with anticipation. Song Wuyo. Mom hopes you will never be sad and always be happy. Song Wuyo. Wuyo, she murmured, her face glowing with joy. I really love this name. Thank you, Song. Thank you, Mom. I said goodbye to the director. After a long silence, Song Ying suddenly burst into tears, and no one could calm her down. Director Ding asked someone to take her in to check if she was feeling unwell, but she was flailing her limbs and almost fell. Song Wuyo turned around and said, that little baby is so pitiful. It suddenly occurred to me, in my past life, I ran into Song Ying on the way and cancelled my plans to visit the orphanage. That little girl, who had dressed up early and was eagerly waiting to see me, must have been so disappointed. 5. I thought I was done with Song Ying for good in this life. Unexpectedly, 3 years later, I received a call from Director Ding. I'm truly sorry to bother you, but this is a matter of life and death. We need you to come here. After hanging up the phone, I walked over to the piano and asked Song Wuyo, want to go back and see Director Ding? Sure. Although I had kept in touch with Director Ding over the years, I had never returned to the orphanage. Seeing Director Ding waiting at the gate from afar, Song Wuyo excitedly waved vigorously through the car window. As soon as the car stopped, she jumped out and ran toward the director, then halfway remembered the supplies in the trunk and turned back to help me get them. I smiled and waved. Go play, Mom can handle it. After greeting the dean, she hurried off to find her former teachers. Like a lively little rabbit, Dean Ding watched her retreating figure and remarked, you've raised her well, no trace of her former timid and pitiful self. I gazed at the dormitory area and got straight to the point. Take me there. 3-year-old Song Ying lay on her tiny single bed. Hearing the noise, her eyelids slowly opened. The moment she saw me, she desperately wanted to sit up, but it was as if she lacked the strength to do so. She tried several times in vain. It's been 3 days since she ate anything, Director Ding said. We can't even get her to eat. She insists on seeing you. We've been force-feeding her some water and juice daily, but that's not a solution. Wants to see me. There are photos of donors hanging in the lobby. She stares at yours every day and has asked to see you many times. We didn't want to disturb you without reason and haven't contacted you. But this time, I sat down on the edge of the bed, my gaze softening with a touch of tenderness. Do you know me? She hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. You wanted to see me, now you have. What happens next, Mom? She whispered weakly. Take me home, Mom. Dean Ding was visibly moved, discreetly wiping away tears. Maybe it's because you seem so kind, he sighed. After all, the child has never seen her own mother. In my previous life, whenever Song Ying got into trouble and begged for my forgiveness, she would sweetly call me Mom. She knew I couldn't resist her coquettishness and would always forgive her. It never failed. I raised my hand toward the pillow, and Song Ying closed her eyes, gently leaning her face closer, a faint smile playing on her lips. But as my hand touched her cheek, I pushed her head to the side with force, and she tumbled over unexpectedly. I picked up a crumb from the pillowcase, held it close for a look, and sure enough, then I lifted the pillow to show Dean Ding, pointing at the half slice of bread under the pillow. Dean Ding asked Song Ying in disbelief, what is this, a hunger strike, and then secretly eating bread on your own? She then turned to me and said, I'm so sorry. I truly had no idea it was like this. Since everyone's fine, I'll head back. Song Ying scrambled off the bed and chased after me, but Director Ding caught her in one swift motion. Don't be naughty. 6. Song Wuyo was playing with her old friends when she saw me and looked up. Mommy, are we going home now? I saw her having a great time. So I said, no rush. It's rare to come by, you can stay a bit longer. Director Ding led me into her office and apologized, saying she hadn't investigated thoroughly this time, perhaps fearing that my impression of the place would be diminished, which might affect regular donations. She repeatedly explained, Xiaoying is usually a bit introverted, and she might have done this to get attention. We will strengthen our psychological care for the children in the future and guide them to express their needs correctly. Before she could finish, a commotion broke out outside. A group of children surrounded Song Ying and Song Wuyo. Song Ying's face was wet with tears as she stammered, "It's okay, I'm not in pain, ouch, I forgive you." The wound on the back of her hand was bleeding. Song Wuyo stood nearby, clutching her hands, her face pale with fear. Several teachers ran over to tend to Song Ying's wound, and all eyes were on her. I stepped beside Song Wuyo, putting an arm around her and gently stroking her trembling shoulders. "What happened, Dean?" Ding asked. Song Ying, enduring the pain, replied, "I had just finished my piano performance when this older girl pulled me aside. She said she admired me and was curious how I could play so well with such small hands. She took my hand to look at it, and then suddenly stabbed me with a pencil." I looked around. "Are there no security cameras?" "There's one over there, but it can't capture this area," Director Ding said. I leaned down to smooth Song Wuyo's bangs and asked gently, "Your turn, what happened?" Song Wuyo had composed herself. She picked up the pencil from the floor. After that girl finished playing the piano, she came over and asked if I could play. I said no, and then she snatched my pencil and stabbed her own hand with it. "Well," Director Ding couldn't help but exclaim, but he stopped short when he saw my expression. It's obvious that, in comparison, Song Wuyo's argument lacks logic and sounds more like the nonsense of a child, making it hard to believe. Director Ding looked at me with a troubled expression. "Xiaoying does indeed have a talent for playing the piano." The other children nearby chimed in. "Xiaoying can play Ode to Joy without even learning it. She's really amazing. With my hand injured now, I don't know if I'll ever be able to play the piano again." Jealousy is a terrifying thing. I frowned, finding it strange, and asked Song Wuyo, "Did you tell them you couldn't play the piano?" On the very first day I brought Song Wuyo home, he showed a keen interest in the piano in the living room. As he listened to me play, his eyes sparkled as if he were witnessing something truly extraordinary. I tentatively asked her if she wanted to learn, and she immediately raised her hand, firmly answering, "Yes, learning the piano is quite tough. You know, I'm not afraid." In my previous life, Song Ying only found my piano playing annoying. It wasn't until she started elementary school and saw some classmates playing that she became envious and expressed a desire to learn. However, after a few lessons, she found practicing the piano boring and couldn't sit still. I tried coaxing and persuading her, but it only deepened her resistance. After half a year, I was exhausted and let her do as she pleased. Song Wuyo is different from her. She doesn't need me to push her. Not only does she practice diligently, but she also often shares her insights with me, showing that she genuinely loves it. Playing a four-hand piano piece after dinner is our daily pastime, Song Wuyo whispered to me. I'm just so lucky to have a mom, a dad, and a home, and the opportunity to learn piano. They don't have that, not because they did anything wrong, but because I'm just so lucky." I suddenly realized that she had returned to her old place and saw the gap between the lives of these children and hers. Instead of feeling superior, she felt an inexplicable sense of guilt, which is why she didn't want to flaunt her life. What a child with great empathy. But now, if someone who only knows Ode to Joy says you're jealous of her, well, there's just no helping that. As I spoke, I walked over to the piano I had donated and motioned to Song Wuyo. "All right then, Your Highness, the stage is yours." 7. Song Wuyo sat down calmly, raising her hands above the black and white keys. Suddenly, as her fingertips descended and struck, the melody rippled into the audience's hearts like a stone breaking the surface of a still lake, precise and powerful, flowing effortlessly. Croatian Rhapsody. The room echoed with her unspoken confusion. grievance, sadness, and anger. As the piece ended, everyone snapped back to reality, and thunderous applause filled the air. Song Ying's jealousy theory falls apart on its own. Among the crowd, only she stood still, staring blankly at the piano. She probably couldn't understand how Song Wuyo, who had only been raised by me for 3 years, could reach such a level. Ding ding, I said seriously, talent isn't important, what matters is becoming an honest and upright person. Ding Ding looked at Song Ying, still hesitant, but she's only 3 years old. If you put it that way, Wuyo is only 6 years old. How could she possibly lie? The dean had no response. I hope you won't spoil or favor her. A small punishment will serve as a warning to others. I understand. I took Song Wuyo's hand, my voice softening. Let's go home, sweetheart. You must have been scared today. Let mommy think about how to make it up to you. You don't have to. Mom, Song Wuyo said, nuzzling my arm with her head, you're already so good to me. We both laughed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Song Ying biting her lip hard, unable to stop her tears from falling. This time, as I stepped out of the courtyard gate, my feelings were completely different. 3 years ago, standing right here, the look in baby Song Ying's eyes made me instantly suspect. Had she been reborn too? For a moment, I regretted not just leaving her in the dumpster to fend for herself, but then I thought, wouldn't that have been letting her off too easy? In my past life, I went to great lengths to secure a smooth path for her, which she rejected, so in this life, let her face the hardships that follow this starting point on her own. I kept my distance from her because, with Song Wuyo in my life, I was happier. I had no intention of letting the mud from Song Ying's life splatter onto us, but after her little scene today, I've changed my mind, since she's determined to come at us. I don't mind adding a bit of fun to my life. Her repeated pleas to follow me, to return to the very home she fought so desperately to escape in her past life, prove one thing: the suffering she endured later filled her with such bitter regret that it forged an unshakable obsession upon her rebirth. Given a second chance, yet unable to right the wrongs, catching a glimpse of hope, only to be plunged back into the abyss. Time and again, this is far more entertaining than letting her meet an early demise. I called our housekeeper. Chen Ma, you mentioned last time that a relative of yours was also looking for work, right? I have a position for her. 8. When my daughter was in 4th grade, she told me a child prodigy had appeared at her school. I didn't need her to tell me. I already knew. Song Ying started elementary school. The teacher had just taught them to count from 1 to 10 when Song Ying stood up and kept counting all the way to 250, unable to stop, until the teacher finally interrupted her. She became famous overnight as the class's little genius. She mastered addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, pinyin, and Chinese characters with ease, and her reputation quickly spread throughout the entire school. At her own insistence, she skipped a grade. However, her reign as number 1 lasted less than 2 years before she had to step down. In her previous life, her academic performance was consistently poor, and even with my arrangement of multiple one-on-one tutoring sessions, she only managed to reach the middle of the pack. This was primarily because, despite her lack of natural talent, she also lacked initiative in her studies, focusing her energy on how to get by and deceive me. The reincarnated foster daughter's futile tale. In this life, I heard Zhao Wan's report, and Song Ying is genuinely eager to learn. The content in the first 2 years of elementary school was simple, and she could easily get good grades. However, as she moved to the middle grades, there were more calculation pitfalls and more rote memorization required. Relying solely on her previous life's foundation, she could no longer easily stay ahead. For several consecutive times, she was only hovering around the top 10 in her grade. In her past life, a score like this would have had Song Ying running home in delight, begging me to take her on an overseas trip. But now, all she faces is her teacher's disappointment and her classmates' mockery. The contrast is agonizing. She's determined to work hard and get her grades back up, but her foster mother, Zhao Wan, would never allow her to do that. At home, there was never-ending housework, and whenever she had a moment, she had to help at the vegetable stall. She often went hungry and was frequently beaten and scolded. One night, Zhao Wan found Song Ying reading under the covers with a flashlight. In a fit of anger, she tore the book to shreds. After entering middle school, Song Ying's grades plummeted even more. Zhao Wan said she seemed to have given up on studying herself. Lately, she doesn't rush home to do her homework every day but instead keeps looking around the school gate, so I made a special effort to free up time and personally picked up Song Woo-yo, who is in the third year of middle school, before school let out. Sure enough, Song Woo-yo hadn't even left the school gate when a figure ran out from the other side and blocked my path. "Auntie, wait a moment, I have very important news to tell you." She mysteriously led me aside. I pretended to be curious and followed her. "I think you look a bit familiar. What's your name? Have we met before?" I tried to make my eyes look innocent and naive. She observed me for a moment and said, "I saw you at the orphanage when I was a child. There were so many people there. You wouldn't remember me. I remember you all too well. What's this important news you mentioned?" "Oh, never mind how I know. But remember, invest in Ife technology. You must invest in it, you won't regret it." "So that's what you were talking about." "In my previous life, I refused to invest in this dark horse company, and one morning at breakfast, I complained to my husband, lamenting and regretting endlessly, which made him so preoccupied with comforting me that he couldn't even eat his meal." At the time, Song Ying listened half-understandingly while sipping her milk. It's impressive that she still remembers. She must have racked her brains to recall it. I was first shocked, then thoughtful, and finally cautiously said, "I'll consider it." She relaxed completely, and a spark of life finally returned to her dusty, weary face. "Bye, Auntie, my name is Zhao Ing, and I'm in class 3, grade 7, I waved goodbye, watching as she ran towards the market, her patched-up backpack bouncing on her shoulders. 9. Song Woo-yo hesitated and walked over. Seeing this scene, before she could ask, I said, "She's here to give me investment advice." In the evening, as I flipped through the business plan, Song Woo-yo, having finished her homework, leaned over and asked, "Is this what she suggested you invest in?" "Yes." How could she possibly understand all this? Is she really a genius? Song Woo-yo looked disheartened. If only Mom had adopted her back then. "I can't help you at all." I smiled and said, "Silly girl, you don't need to compare yourself to anyone, you're the best. Come, take a look and tell me what you think of her suggestions." Song Woo-yo really started to look through it seriously. After a while, she closed the proposal and said, "She's right, this company does seem impressive, so I already met with the founder of Ife last month." Song Woo-yo looked up in surprise, then smiled. I knew it, Mom doesn't need her advice. However, she hesitated and pushed another proposal in front of me. "If it were up to me, I'd say this company has a brighter future." Oh, she chose heroine. Ife's founder has an aggressive style, aiming straight for an IPO, but the team lacks overall experience. And their product has a low entry barrier. Once a major company enters the market, their competitiveness is incomparable. Heroine, on the other hand, has core technology and a more solid and clear future plan. Seeing that I didn't respond, Song Woo-yo scratched his head. "I'm just an outsider looking in. I don't understand the data. I'm just analyzing it from a textual perspective." "Mom, don't laugh at me." Ife's future indeed turned out as she predicted, short-lived like a fleeting blossom, so I prepared for short-term gains. Heroine remained obscure for years to come, but through steady and deep cultivation, it leaped to industry leadership just 2 years before my previous life ended. This girl is not only smart but also has a sharp eye for opportunity. I suddenly have a bold conjecture. "Woo-yo, when will the 2020 Olympics be held?" She paused for a moment, then reached out to touch my forehead. "Mom, the answer is right there in the question. She's not reborn, so I must have really hit the jackpot." I took 2 steps back, looking at her, and the more I looked, the more I felt I had seen this face in my previous life. After turning it over in my mind all night, I suddenly sat bolt upright at 3 a.m. That's right, I'd seen her on the news. It was around Song Ying's second year of high school, right after the seniors' college entrance exams. Our school swept both the top science and art scores, and one of the top scorers, due to her tragic background, was heavily covered by the media. She had lost both parents, grew up in an orphanage, worked for 2 years after middle school, and saved up enough money on her own to return to school. Although she downplayed her hardships in the interview, just looking at her frail and weary appearance, anyone could tell how incredibly tough her journey had been. Song Ying looked at the news with a disdainful expression. "Just a bookworm who only knows how to study." I was on high alert. Her little clique at school loves to target students like This, especially those from less privileged backgrounds. Haven't you bullied that person? How did you promise me last time? Are you trying to drive your mother crazy? I didn't. She fled guiltily. I sighed and turned back to the screen, thinking to myself that if we could have adopted that poor child back then, letting her grow up in a comfortable environment, then at the very least, along with her success, she would have had a little more happiness. The face etched with suffering and the one now radiant with happiness overlapped in my mind. My heart gave a painful twinge, and I immediately threw off the covers and got out of bed. Where are you going? My husband asked, grabbing my arm. I'm going to give Wuyo a hug. He heard me say something out of the blue, didn't ask any questions, and followed me out of bed half asleep. I'm coming too, don't leave me out. 10. After waiting for a month, I returned to school. I waved from afar when I saw Song Ying, and her eyes lit up. She immediately pushed through the crowd and ran over. It felt like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Ah, Auntie, did you call me? She gasped, out of breath. Auntie is so grateful to you. I don't even know how to repay you. Is there anything you need? Song Ying was overjoyed, swallowing hard. Auntie, I think I can bring you good luck. I pondered thoughtfully. She continued, or else, I'll follow you. After saying this, she looked at me with immense anxiety, her mouth half open, wearing a humble and ingratiating smile, barely breathing, as if her heart was in her throat. So, what you're saying is, don't you already have a home? Seeing an opportunity, Song Ying quickly added, my adoptive mother doesn't love me at all. I don't understand why she adopted me. She's never been kind to me. I see. In that case, I'll go have a word with her. Yes, I'll show you the way. I had never seen her so happy. Not even in her previous life when she rushed out of the villa holding her family's hands. 11. I brought Song Ying back home. I sent another sum of money to Zhao Wan and assigned her a new task. My husband was slightly taken aback when he saw me bring an unfamiliar girl home. He had praised me many times before, saying it was thanks to me adopting such an excellent and lovely daughter as Wuyo that our family could be so happy. So this time, after I briefly explained the situation, he readily accepted the prospect of having another daughter. He immediately arranged for the maid to clean a room, bustling about and clearly enjoying himself. I watched from the side, thinking to myself, still grinning like a fool, in your last life, her brother killed you with a single slash. Back then, they tied me to a chair. Song Ying checked her watch and said, my father should be home in 10 minutes. Everyone then hid behind the door, poised and ready. My mouth was gagged. No matter how hard I strained, I couldn't make a sound loud enough to be heard outside. In the end, I threw all my weight into it, toppling over, chair and all, onto the floor. It was still useless. The door opened. I pulled my thoughts back, unwilling to dwell on them further. Before her, Song Ying's eyes welled with tears as she looked around. Her chest heaved violently, a myriad of emotions surging within her, yet she couldn't find the words to express them. She cherished this hard-won opportunity and was far more sensible than in her previous life. One day, she came back soaked to the bone. I pretended to be concerned and asked, what happened to you? Someone bullied me, Song Ying blurted out, bursting into tears the moment she spoke. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a bruised and swollen arm, with fresh wounds layered over old ones. I knew the bullies were her very own lackeys from her past life, back when they used to torment others. I had been summoned to the school more than once. Every time, I would lecture her sternly, but she never took it seriously, always making excuses. We were just playing with her. I took her arm and ran my hand firmly over the bruises. She winced in pain, sucking in a sharp breath. They were probably just horsing around with you. She pulled her hand back in surprise. No, they weren't. They were really rough. Why are you the only one being bullied? You need to learn how to get along with your classmates. I want my daughter to be well-liked. She initially wanted to argue, but upon hearing the last sentence, she suddenly froze, then nodded silently. I helped her pull her sleeve down. Keep it up. I don't want to see this happen again. She pursed her lips and lowered her head. 12. How could she decide whether she would be bullied or not? Only by standing in the victim's shoes could she understand their helplessness. Flattery didn't work. Pleading didn't work. And there was no escape. Before, all she had to endure was pain. But now that she knows my stance, she's afraid I'll think she doesn't know how to behave, so she endures even the pain. Every day, she wears long sleeves and pants, and before going home, she combs her hair back into place after it's been pulled out of order. I asked her with feigned concern, "Is anyone still bullying you?" "No, no one, we're all good classmates, you know." Her smile looked more like a grimace. "Good, that's how it should be," I said, placing a piece of spare rib in her bowl. She asked without even daring to look up at me, "There's a parent-teacher conference at school on Friday, can you go?" Of course I can go, why wouldn't I? We go to Wuyo's conferences every year anyway, missing one probably won't matter, I said, giving Wuyo a surreptitious wink. Songying was too excited to notice the little gesture. Her plan was simply this: she hoped I would show my face in front of her classmates, to let them know she was no longer a poor kid. That way, she could get herself off the list of those who got bullied. She must have told those people about her changed circumstances, but even though I took her in, I only gave her meals, nothing extra. She didn't dare ask for more, so she just kept carrying that tattered old backpack. Naturally, they didn't believe her. She desperately needed me to step in and prove it. On the day of the parent-teacher meeting, I appeared outside her classroom window. She proudly lifted her chin, raised her hand high, and waved at me, but I didn't stop. I walked past without looking, went up the stairs, and arrived at Wuyo's classroom. Laughter echoed far and wide. When she walked in the door that day, her disheveled state was impossible to hide. I handed her some clean clothes and explained, I was planning to go, but the homeroom teacher of Wuyo called me and said the parents of the top student needed to share their experience, so I had to go. "You won't blame me, will you?" "No, no," she said, her eyes red and brimming with tears. "Go wash up quickly, you stink." 13. After dinner, Songying made an unprecedented request, asking Song Wuyo to tutor her with her homework. Song Wuyo looked at me for confirmation, and after I nodded slightly, she agreed. She trusts me unconditionally, just as I trust her. As soon as they entered the room, I went into the bedroom, took out my phone, and stared at the surveillance feed. At first, Songying did ask for help with a couple of questions, but she quickly changed the subject. "Wuyo, I actually feel a bit sorry for you." "Huh? Why?" "From your grades, it's clear your mom has been very strict with you all these years. She only cares about you getting good grades and doesn't really care about what you truly want." "Right, what I really want is good grades." Songying looked exasperated. "No, think carefully. Don't you want freedom, to play with whoever you want, do whatever you want? Imagine how great that would be. Oh, and your mom doesn't let you hang out with those cool, handsome boys, does she? How much fun are you missing out on?" "My mom supports everything I'm interested in and even got me an annual pass to the planetarium." As for boys, Song Wuyo thought for a moment, at this age, there are no cool, handsome ones, they're all silly and overly dramatic. Songying fell into deep thought at those words, slapping her own head in frustration. "I suppose you're right." After a long pause, she seemed unwilling to let it go. "So, living here, you don't have a single complaint. Complain about a life like this? You'd have to be out of your mind." Songying gave an awkward cough and turned her attention back to her book. After her plan to sow discord fell through, she tossed and turned in bed all night. 14. Xiao Wan sent me a message saying the person had been found and the message had been delivered, just as I expected. After learning of her whereabouts, her family didn't rush to reunite. Instead, they first inquired about her current situation. Only after confirming my family's financial standing did they come rushing over, overjoyed. As soon as Songying stepped out of the school gate, her biological parents, accompanied by 3 brothers, rushed up to surround her. "Daughter, we've finally found you." "I am." "No, you're not." Songying was terrified out of her wits. "I don't know you. Let me go." "How can you say that? Don't you have a birthmark on your waist? Take a look." "No, no," Songying shouted, turning and running, charging back into the school building. Her family was stopped by security, forced to watch helplessly as she disappeared into the academic building. By the time I received the notification and rushed to the hospital, Songying had not yet regained consciousness. The school administrators apologized to me nervously, saying the unlocked chemistry lab door was a failure on the school's part. They would cover all medical expenses and do their best to meet any other requests. I waved my hand dismissively, pouring sulfuric acid on herself. The primary responsibility for that lies with her, of course, beyond covering the medical expenses. We won't make any unreasonable demands. The school administrators were taken aback by my reasonableness and sense of fairness. After making some assurances, they hurried off to pay the bill. I have to say, Song Ying was incredibly ruthless with herself, resorting to such a drastic method to destroy her birthmark. After she woke up, I asked her why she had done it. There isn't a single good patch of skin on your waist. I sighed. She felt relieved and gave a weak smile. I was just being mischievous. Oh, by the way, someone came to see me while you were unconscious, claiming you were my brother. As I peeled an apple, I casually mentioned it, noticing her already pale face grow even darker. Isn't it ridiculous? These days, you get all sorts of scammers. As if reminded, she said, right, it's a scam, don't believe it. He even said you still have parents and a younger brother, a lively, bustling family. I cut a piece of apple and fed it to her. If what he said were true, you'd be over the moon, wouldn't you? She lowered her eyes, chewing mechanically. After swallowing, she asked me, if Song Wuyo's family came looking for her, and she didn't want to go back, would you make her leave? Wuyo has no family. What if it was me? A faint, candle-like light flickered in her eyes. Then I'd have to verify it first. If they really are family looking for you, I think I should let you go. It would be such a shame not to return to such a lively home. The candle flame was snuffed out in an instant. In my past life, I didn't even wait for a paternity test. I just ran off with someone based on a birthmark. I probably didn't have a clue. This time, I paid a painful price just to get rid of a birthmark. The thought of it makes me laugh. Stop overthinking. Once you've recovered, I'd like to make it official and have you join my family. How does that sound? She forced a faint smile. Okay. 15. After Song Ying was discharged from the hospital, we held a welcome home party for her. I decorated the living room in her favorite shade of blue and brought out a cake with a drawing of her smiling face. Where's Wuyo? She asked, looking around. Went to Grandpa's house to play. I won't bring Wuyo back until the matter is resolved. Her husband twisted the nozzle, and amidst the shower of confetti, Song Ying wept with joy. At this moment, she felt like the one and only treasure of the family. The things she didn't cherish in her previous life, the things she desperately pursued in this life, had finally returned to her in a dreamlike way. Silly child, why are you crying? This will be your home from now on. She nodded firmly, as if making a certain decision. These days, her family has come to the villa looking for her more than once, and I've had the security guards stop them, until a few days later, I saw from the surveillance that she was almost ready. Only then did he relax the security detail, using work as an excuse to leave the villa. When Song Ying opened the door and saw it was them, she didn't resist like last time. Instead, she let them in with a cold expression. Her mother was overjoyed. You've come around, haven't you, dear? I knew you would. After all, we're family. Don't come back here again, Song Ying said. Her father lit a cigarette. What do you mean by that? You still don't want to acknowledge us? If you're still not convinced, we can go for that DNA test. It was you who abandoned me back then, so why are you looking for me now? Back then, our parents had their reasons, her older brother began. Save those words to fool the spirits, Song Ying interrupted him. Let me be blunt. Can we just go our separate ways and not bother each other anymore? Her family members exchanged glances. The eldest brother said, we all miss you. Look, you have me as your older brother and 2 younger brothers. How impressive you'll be when you go out with us. We can protect you. Song Ying looked at him, started laughing blankly, and the laughter grew louder until she could barely stand up straight. Protect me? Haha, don't think I don't know what you're up to. You know I'm now a rich family's adopted daughter, so you come to cozy up to me. You say you want to take me home, but it's just because you know this family has grown attached to me and doesn't want me to suffer. By taking me away, you're taking a tool that you can always come to for money. After I went back with you, it was you, my dear brother, who introduced me to your buddy. No one cared about me, so I really started dating him and even got pregnant with his child. You all pretended to be nice to me, and I got lost in the dream of being pampered. I thought you were the best people in the world, except for being broke. Being broke didn't matter. I could keep asking for money. Little did I know, I pushed the only person who truly cared about me to the point of no return, forcing them to cut ties with me. When things started to go south, you came up with a terrible idea. suggesting I consider the baby in my belly and just inherit the fortune to solve everything. Once and for all, I did those things, but what about you? You blackmailed me with footage of me entering here before the incident, forcing me to hand over all my money to you. As soon as you got the money, you turned your backs on me, making me, a pregnant woman, serve your entire family, pampered. How laughable. I was just a piece of rotten meat, at the mercy of others. In the end, I couldn't even save my child. I went mad, and you still wanted to sell me to an old man. I died with my eyes wide open. Song Ying finished speaking and slumped to the floor. Her family had listened with tense expressions at first, but as she went on, they began to think she was just talking nonsense, and their faces relaxed a little. Sweetheart, don't scare your mother like that. Are you all right? Song Ying wiped away her tears and staggered to her feet. It's fine, you guys come pick me up at the school gate tomorrow. I want to go home and take a look. Hey, that's the spirit. You'll like it. The house may not be big, but you can do whatever you want. It's a lot of fun. 16. The next day, I finished my work early and sat quietly at my desk, waiting for the police's call. A family of 6 consumed food contaminated with rat poison, resulting in 5 fatalities and 1 person being rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Given the unusual nature of Song Ying's relationship with the other victims, she naturally became a suspect in the police investigation. However, 2 key points cast doubt on this theory. First, she herself was poisoned, and second, surveillance footage showed that when her family picked her up, she appeared reluctant and even tried to run away before being forced into the car. This behavior is inconsistent with the logic of a premeditated poisoning. Just as the police were about to clear her of suspicion and look for another lead, I delivered the surveillance footage in the nick of time. The video clearly captured Song Ying portioning out rat poison in her bedroom and then placing it into her backpack. A shaft of sunlight fell across the hospital bed. Song Ying slowly opened her eyes. When she saw me, she smiled. Mom, I'm not dead. That's great. They took me away, and then I don't know what happened. My stomach hurts so much. I thought I wouldn't make it back. Mom, I want to go home. I pulled the curtains, and the ward instantly darkened. I leaned down to look at her. You took a risky step. Aren't you afraid that if you misjudge the dosage, it could cost you your life? Her smile froze on her face. I nodded. She closed her eyes weakly. Since when? From the very beginning, from the moment I saw you in the trash, I remembered everything. Her eyes suddenly widened, round and startled. Then why didn't I kill you sooner? I smiled, straightening up. You've already ruined my life once. I can't let you do it again. In this life, I am still a good person, a happier one, and you wanted to turn over a new leaf and be good too, right? Yet somehow, things ended up like this. How's that working out for you? Her mouth fell open, wanting to cry out, but her throat seized up, and no sound came. Like a fish in despair, the police knocked and entered, and I stepped out of the ward. Before I even reached the downstairs, I heard a loud bang outside. Song Ying's extra story. As I lay on the brink of death, tormented beyond measure, all I could see was my past life. A hand of great cards played so poorly. If I could do it all over again, I would cherish and savor the happiness that was once mine. I opened my eyes to a clear blue sky, and there was a young mother in a coat looking at me. I was reborn, and the dream of being the heroine in a rebirth story actually came true. But no matter how much I cried and shouted, she didn't pick me up. At the orphanage gate, the child she was holding was someone else, watching her about to leave. I ached to throw myself into her arms. Why is this happening? I can't figure out what altered the course of events. Ever since I could speak, I kept asking to see her, but no one paid me any mind. It wasn't until I pretended to go on a hunger strike that I finally got to see her again. That girl, Song Wuyo, who had lived in her house for 3 years, seemed truly carefree. It struck me, wasn't I just like that as a child? I thought everyone was the same, but observing from the sidelines made it clear, only a flower that is cherished can bloom so freely and wildly. I must seize the opportunity. I framed her, but my wounds didn't make my mother feel sorry for me. She stood by Song Wuyo from start to finish. From the way my mother looked at her playing the piano, I knew they were closer, and we were farther apart. After they left, I was severely punished by the headmaster and locked in a small dark room. I thought for a long time inside, since I've been reborn, there's no need to cling to one tree. I can fully utilize the advantages of being reborn to create a wonderful life for myself. However, when I came out, Headmaster Ding said someone had specifically requested to adopt me. I thought it was my mother changing her mind, so I rushed out without even properly dressing, only to find it was Xiao Wan, that dowdy woman. I had no choice but to follow her. Little did I know, that single step plunged me into the quagmire of fate. For the first few years, I cried almost every day, starving, cold, beaten, and cursed. The fairy tale childhood of my past life was replaced by a living nightmare in this one. When I finally started school, I was able to shine. The feeling of being admired and looked up to was entirely new to me. It was then that I finally understood what Song Mo meant when she urged me to study. But the good times didn't last. From a certain day onward, I could never score first place again. It's okay, I can work hard. However, I forgot that it's no longer the time when, as long as I was willing to learn, Song Mo would provide everything I needed to support me. I had to squeeze out sleep time and sneak to read a couple of pages, which was discovered by Xiao Wan, who then beat me up. The more anxious I became, the greater the pressure, and the more my mind struggled to absorb anything. By middle school, my grades had dropped to the middle of the pack, and the feeling of falling from a high place tormented me daily. I had to think of another way. I told my foster mother that we could buy a house, and we'd make a big profit in no time. She said I was belittling her because I thought our family was poor, and she grabbed a rolling pin and chased me around the house. Well, I don't have the money to buy a house anyway, and my stomach is still growling. After much thought, the closest path to success for me is still through Song Mo. Although she didn't adopt me in this life, her attitude towards me doesn't seem to be one of hatred, which means there's still a chance. I carefully recalled every detail of my previous life, and it did remind me of something. My investment advice paid off. Finally, I stepped back into that luxurious house, seeing everything that was both familiar and strange. I couldn't stop trembling from head to toe. Despite all the hardship I endured, I managed to get my life back on track. I'm pretty damn proud of myself. I'm determined to be a good daughter to Song Mo and to cherish everything she has given me. That night, as I lay in the soft bed, I laughed out loud in my dreams. Everything was going so well. But then, why did Song Wuyo have to exist? Because of her, Mom doesn't care for me like she did in my past life. No matter how hard I try to please Mom, with Song Wuyo as a comparison, it never seems to be enough. I even tried to stir up trouble between them, but Song Wuyo is as dense as a block of wood. Nothing gets through to her. Yet, her words made me realize how foolish I was in my past life, a level of stupidity that even my present self finds hard to accept. I adjusted my mindset. This is already good enough. I'm not greedy. If I can enjoy even half of what I had in my past life, I'll be content. But it seems like fate is toying with me. My family, who weren't supposed to find me for several more years, suddenly showed up at the school gate. When I rushed into the lab and found the sulfuric acid, I didn't hesitate. There was only one thought in my mind. I couldn't let them destroy what I had fought so hard to get back. When I woke up and saw my mother sitting by my hospital bed, peeling an apple for me, I felt that all the bone-deep agony had been worth it. But when I heard her mention the paternity test, I was stunned. What was I even doing? Once the test was done, the truth would be out in the open. I had risked my life for nothing, making a complete fool of myself. Mom said if my family came, she would let me go. She's changed. In my past life, she couldn't bear to part with me. Now that she has Song Wuyo, she no longer values me. I can't let them find me. I worked out a plan overnight to ensure their complete defeat while keeping myself safe. I arranged to meet them in a place with surveillance, then changed my mind just before getting in the car. When they tried to pull me in, I put up a token resistance but didn't really resist. I did eat the drugged meal, just not much of it. When I woke up again, the sunlight was on my face, and my mom was right beside me. I knew I had made the right bet. It felt like a long and dark dream. I went through countless hardships, paid a great price, and with all my strength, I slowly climbed out of the mire and back into the beautiful life that was rightfully mine. It was incredibly difficult, but it was so worth it. I opened my mouth. Mom, the end. Story 2. My sister is a snake demon, cultivating for 1,000 years just to transform into a dragon and ascend. At the moment of ascension, a mortal pointed at her and said, "It's a snake." She fell from midair, severely weakened. and was taken to the palace by an emperor who was out hunting. Through their daily interactions, my sister developed feelings, but the emperor took advantage of her guard being down and impaled her with a spear dipped in talisman water. He dug out his sister's snake pearl and shared it with the imperial concubine. Folklore claims the emperor and his concubine share profound love, unswayed by demons, having personally slain the monsters to usher in this peaceful era. No one knows that my sister was the golden python revered as an auspicious sign, while I am the ghost snake that brings calamity. Now, I've been welcomed into the palace as a divine maiden. On the day my sister died, 100 birds wailed in mourning, and heaven and earth wept together. The ignorant mortals called it an auspicious sign, the sound of victory, like sweet rain after a long drought. Only when the torrential rain poured for 3 days straight, drowning and destroying village after village, did they realize it wasn't sweet rain but calamity. Refugees came in wave after wave, while courtiers submitted stack upon stack of memorials. The emperor's endless worries turned his hair white. At that very moment, I appeared. The incessant rain ceased without warning, as I stood on the high platform with a hand seal, becoming their savior in desperate times. Thousands knelt in worship, revering me as the divine maiden. I got my wish and was summoned to the palace. The emperor sat on the high platform, his oppressive aura carrying traces of my sister's snake elixir. He asked me what I desired. I prostrated on the ground. I only seek a place to stay. Raise your head. I slowly raised my head, catching a fleeting look of admiration in Levi's eyes. Unlike my sister's delicate elegance, I radiate a more vibrant and captivating beauty. The more vividly patterned the snake, the deadlier its venom tends to be. Levi's Adam's apple bobbed as he began to speak, only to be interrupted by the imperial consort beside him. In my humble opinion, why not have her move to the state preceptor's residence? The divine maiden and the state preceptor would likely find much to discuss. The noble consort's complexion remained composed, yet her knuckles turned a frightening bluish-white from excessive force. The state preceptor was both her spy and her lover. The noble consort was intensely jealous, unable to tolerate even the slightest speck in her eye. As Levi's gaze gradually shifted from her to her elder sister, she grew anxious, so she had the royal sorcerer tell Levi that her sister was a golden python about to ascend, and that extracting its core and drinking its blood would greatly benefit mortal cultivation. Obsessed with cultivation, Levi sought to rival deities with his mortal body, and his heart was swayed. Thus, step by step, he deceived her sister, ultimately piercing her through with a spear dipped in talisman water. Sisters as one, I could clearly feel her blood gushing uncontrollably from her body, the spear-pierced chest burning with searing pain. A millennial serpent demon, just one step away from transforming into a dragon. Waves of excruciating pain stung her heart. Her sister wept, dying in disbelief that the emperor she deeply loved would slaughter her without hesitation, feasting on her flesh and blood. The mortal world is heartless, I had warned her long ago. After a moment of silence, Levi agreed to the imperial concubine's proposal. Shall the divine maiden reside in the state preceptor's residence? Thank you, your majesty. This humble woman has heard that your majesty recently obtained a serpent core. 1,000-year serpent core is extremely rare in this world. If the core is refined for your majesty's use, achieving immortality may be effortless, and manipulating the clouds and rain would be as easy as turning one's hand. Levi's obsession with attaining immortality was known throughout the land. The fact that I stopped the heavy rain with a mere hand seal added credibility to my words. Instantly, Levi's eyes lit up. The serpent pearl placed beside him had indeed cured many of his chronic ailments. The serpent pearl nourished him, restoring his vitality and making him appear years younger. Yet this fell far short of his expectations. Greed knows no bounds, and Levi desired far more than this, and so, the task of refining the serpent pearl was entrusted to me. With a deadline of 49 days, the golden glowing snake pearl rests in my palm, warmth spreading from my hand to my heart. My sister comforts me, saying, Athena, big sister is fine, too. Wherever the golden python goes, blessings follow, a divine gift from heaven. In 1,000 years, only my sister has been born as one, and I am a ghost snake, even rarer than the golden python. On the day I was born, all life withered, heaven and earth lost their radiance, plagues ravaged the land, and the people suffered endlessly. The ghost snake is an ominous creature. Wherever it goes, calamity follows. Thus, my arrival is met with scorn. My parents loathe me, My siblings despise me. I was ostracized and bullied. Back then, I hadn't yet taken human form, just a tiny creature, unable to hunt alone. My parents refused to feed me, and even the scraps I managed to scavenge were stolen by others of my kind, often going hungry. I looked much thinner than other snakes my age, lying half dead in the snow. Just when I thought I wouldn't survive the harsh winter, my sister saved me. She stood in front of me, shielding me from all the storms. She said, "Athena, you can't choose your origins, but you can choose your future." So I practiced cultivation by her side, and through the long years, all we had was each other. I suppressed the bloodthirsty nature of the ghost snake and stayed by her side year after year. When she smiled, dimples would appear on her cheeks, making her look adorable. Her long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings, captivating the heart. Despite having an absurdly low alcohol tolerance, she loved imitating humans by warming a pot of unfiltered wine during New Year's Eve. Even when drunk, she never forgot to recite her grand philosophies. She said the strong should protect the weak, that she would ascend as a dragon and shelter this land. I hated her grand principles, and hated even more that I had no place in them. She asked me with a smile what kind of person I wanted to become in the future. Coiled around her neck, I answered without hesitation, "A man. I will surely transform into a man and protect her just as she protected me." The water reflected that peerlessly beautiful face. I reached out to disturb the surface. "I should have been a man. We should have stayed together forever." 3. I moved into the state preceptor's residence, dwelling in the most remote and desolate courtyard far from him. However, snakes have much keener hearing than humans. In the dead of night, I still detected unusual movements in the imperial preceptor's courtyard. The imperial preceptor wore only a thin robe as the noble consort threw herself into his arms, her delicate fingers tracing circles on his chest. "Brother Dashiell, I've missed you so much these past few days." The imperial preceptor tenderly brushed aside the stray hairs at her temples. "Isabella, let me take you away. We'll become immortal lovers, roaming freely between heaven and earth, no longer confined by the gilded cages of the imperial harem. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" The imperial consort and the state preceptor were childhood sweethearts with deep affection, but after a near-drowning incident, her temperament changed drastically, defying her family's objections. She insisted on entering the imperial palace. The consort's maternal family lacked strong foundations, causing her repeated setbacks. She narrowly escaped death several times in palace intrigues. Thus she wrote a bloodletter to the state preceptor still outside the palace. Knowing well his capabilities, she begged him to enter the imperial court. The state preceptor, who aspired to wander free as clouds and cranes among mountains and rivers, entered the gilded cage called the imperial palace for the sake of his beloved's plea, joining forces. The imperial consort stepped over one corpse after another to climb to her current position. Unlike the grand preceptor, what she craved most was power. How could she abandon such immense wealth to elope with the grand preceptor? She aspired to be the most revered woman in the world, not the wife of some country bumpkin. A tear slipped from the corner of her eye as she wore an expression of reluctance and grievance. "Brother Dashiell, you know I can't. My mother and father, as well as my maternal siblings, all still depend on me." This is her usual excuse. The imperial advisor sighed and tightened his embrace around her. Lying on the rooftop watching their affection, I couldn't help but sigh. Levi's head is truly green with jealousy. Before leaving, the imperial consort mentioned me to the imperial advisor. After the incident with elder sister, she became even more vigilant, determined to eliminate any potential threats to her ascension to empress, to show his respect for the divine maiden. Levi personally escorted me to the state preceptor's residence, which made her feel threatened once again. If it weren't for the banquet 3 days later where I must make an appearance, I probably wouldn't survive tonight. As soon as the imperial consort spoke, the state preceptor understood her intentions. He said, "Don't worry, if she harbors ulterior motives, the state preceptor's residence won't mind having one more corpse." After the imperial consort left, the state preceptor's face turned as dark as water. The previous warmth in his eyes completely vanished as he spoke coldly. "How long do you intend to keep eavesdropping?" Instantly, a large hole was torn through the eaves beside me. Had I not dodged in time, my arm would likely be gone. I leaped down, brushing off the dust from my clothes. "It's been years since we last met, yet your skills have improved considerably." I tilted my head slightly, "But compared to me, you're still far behind." he sneered, no matter how powerful. You're still bound by the laws of heaven, no matter where they are. Demons are never welcome, as if bloodlust and cruelty were innate traits carved into a demon's bones, and demons are far stronger than humans. With just a wave of their hand, they could snap their necks. Thus the heavenly Tao manifested, decreeing that demons must not excessively interfere in mortal affairs. I cannot personally avenge my sister's death. This is precisely why Dashiell, though fully aware he's no match for me, remains so brazenly unafraid. Weren't you always secluded in the deep mountains and ancient forests? What brings you suddenly to the imperial palace? Could it be you seek vengeance for your sister? Why did you kill my sister? She once saved your life. War raged in the north, displacing countless civilians who fled south in droves, Dashiell among them, gaunt and frail. The small boy was jostled and shoved in the surging crowd. When his sister found him, he was covered in blood, barely clinging to life. Dashiell's gaze towards me was piercingly cold. Had you not suddenly appeared back then, the North wouldn't have plunged into war. I've never owed you sisters anything. I could barely suppress the hatred and resentment in my heart. That has nothing to do with her. If you want to kill someone, come kill me. Dashiell turned his face away. You sisters are one and the same. What difference does it make, as long as Isabella needs Isabella? I scoffed coldly. The core inside has long been replaced. The current Isabella is no longer your childhood sweetheart. You fool, can't even recognize the person you love. Dashiell's eyes widened, his breath catching. After Isabella fell into the water, her temperament changed drastically. He had his suspicions and tested her, but Isabella brushed it off by claiming amnesia. Dashiell shook his head vigorously, retorting, impossible. Sometimes what people excel at most is deceiving themselves, and what I must do is force them to break free from their own lies. Just wait and see. Let's find out if the core still loves you or not. For where the ghost serpent goes, calamity follows. The hall of mental cultivation, peaceful for too long, suddenly caught fire. Flames raged, thick smoke blotted the sky, and Levi remained trapped inside. The maids and eunuchs outside screamed in panic, shouting, "Help!" and "Fire!" In chaos, they rushed to fetch water, terrified that if anything happened to the emperor inside, they'd be held accountable. Bucket after bucket was thrown, yet the flames only grew fiercer. The normally orderly palace was now in complete disarray. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. I timed my descent perfectly, and when they saw me, it was as if they all collectively exhaled in relief. The Divine Maiden, it's the Divine Maiden, thank goodness, His Majesty will be saved. As the flames continued to spread, I rushed in under the hopeful gazes of the crowd. The burning beam collapsed, pinning Levi's leg firmly beneath it, leaving him unable to move. Sweat poured down his soot-stained face as hope flickered in his eyes. Divine Maiden, I used magic to move the beam aside, and as I helped Levi escape, another beam fell, heading straight for him. I swiftly turned and shielded him beneath me. Your Majesty, be careful. I didn't use magic, pretending to be careless as I let the flames burn a patch of skin on my back. Later, as he personally applied medicine for me, his face full of distress, he said, "This is all my fault, Your Majesty." This subject acted out of urgent devotion to protect my lord. My garments slipped halfway, exposing large swathes of snow-white skin as Levi's fingertips applied ointment along my spine. A shiver ran through me, drawing a soft moan, prompting his immediate concern. Was that too painful? Fine beads of sweat formed on my forehead as I paled, appearing fragile and pitiful. Mustering a strained smile toward him, "It doesn't hurt, Your Majesty." His hand applying ointment for me paused, his earlobes reddening as if about to drip blood. "I'll be gentler." Everyone else had been dismissed, leaving only the sound of our heartbeats and breathing in the quiet room. The rise and fall of his chest quickened, his hand applying medicine trembling slightly. The next day, the jealous noble consort came knocking. 5. I knelt below while she unceremoniously took the seat of honor. She bent down and tightly gripped my face, her sharp nails digging into my flesh. Her tone sinister. "Divine Maiden, truly laughable." That 1,000-year snake demon on the verge of godhood also fell to my hands, ending up dismembered into pieces. "What makes you think you're any different?" I stared unblinkingly at her, as if seeing her already dead future. "If I discover you've entertained improper thoughts, I'll have your skin flayed off." She flung my hand away, leaving a long bloody scratch across my face. I prostrated myself on the ground, demonstrating absolute loyalty. Your Highness overestimates me, this humble servant knows his lowly status, how could I dare covet the Emperor? The Emperor's left leg is severely injured, and even the imperial physicians are at a loss. I once obtained a miraculous pill that can cure all diseases and heal all wounds. The imperial consort became interested. She raised an eyebrow and asked me, where is the medicine? But before the imperial consort could present the pill to win the emperor's favor, an unexpected incident occurred. The grand astrologer unfortunately missed his step and broke his leg. The imperial physicians shook their heads at the broken leg. Finding no other solution, rumors spread through the palace that the grand preceptor would remain a cripple for life. Some sighed in pity, while others took malicious delight. For the noble consort, the choice wasn't difficult, between the lover who helped her climb to high status and the world's most exalted emperor. Yet the grand preceptor still wanted to make one final struggle. Isabella, why aren't you wearing the bracelet I gave you? The imperial concubine guiltily hid her hands behind her back. Perhaps I left it in the palace in my haste. Brother Dashiell, did you come looking for me for something? The royal astrologer's eyes flickered slightly, yet he continued smiling and reminiscing with her as usual. When you were little, you always coveted your elder sister's bracelet, so I found some jade and personally carved a pair for you. The craftsmanship was rough, yet you were overjoyed and wore it constantly, even unwilling to take it off when sleeping. His expression softened with nostalgia as he recalled the past. The imperial consort stiffly forced a smile and awkwardly laughed. Brother Dashiell, that was so long ago. The state preceptor shook his head. To me, it feels like just yesterday. He went on and on with a long rambling speech, until the imperial consort grew utterly weary of listening. I'd already forgotten about it. The unspoken words stuck in his throat. Neither coming up nor going down. The state preceptor lowered his eyelashes and said, very well. The imperial consort didn't even hesitate before giving that pill to the emperor. The state preceptor's face was tense, his lips pressed into a thin line, leaning against the doorframe. I gazed at him with pity. Dashiell, can't you see it even now? His hands clenched into tight fists. Seeing no reaction from him, I added another heavy blow. What if I told you your Isabella isn't dead yet? His eyes lit up. I continued, 2 souls in one body. The false one has temporarily taken over the real one's form. As long as we drive her away, the real one will naturally awaken. I leaned close to his ear and whispered temptingly, and I can help you. Join me, kill the false imperial consort and the emperor, and I'll bring your Isabella back to you. 6. A sudden fire broke out in the emperor's bedchamber, a matter of grave importance concerning the sovereign's safety. From high-ranking officials to lowly maids and eunuchs, everyone clutched their heads in fear. The palace was shrouded in gloom, and every step felt like treading on the edge of a blade. The emperor ordered a thorough investigation, but even after turning the palace upside down, nothing was found. I told Levi that the snake pearl auspicious sign could protect its master, and the closer one was to the snake pearl, the fewer disasters would occur. Since the snake pearl needed to be handed over to me for refinement, I successfully stayed in the palace, remaining by Levi's side. He looked at the memorials with a headache, while I stood by grinding ink for him. Suddenly, I started coughing violently, blood gushing out from my mouth. This was the heavenly Tao's warning as I began meddling in mortal affairs. Just a superficial injury, after all. I hadn't actually done anything yet. Levi immediately stood up to support me, his expression panicked. What's happening? Staggering slightly, I barely managed to steady myself by gripping Levi's wrist, just as my maidservant spoke up at the right moment. Your Majesty, the divine maiden has been like this ever since coming out of the fire. The imperial physician said her internal organs were injured and she needs time to recuperate. Levi's eyes filled with more pity as he looked at me. Why didn't you tell me? I need to constantly remind him of the injuries I suffered for him, the hardships I endured, how I rushed into the fire without hesitation to save him. He owes me his life. Oh no, make that 2 lives. I lowered my head, my docile hair cascading down to reveal a pale, fragile neck. Your servant is willing to die for your Majesty. Such minor injuries are nothing. His Adam's apple bobbed as his grip on my wrist tightened. Athena, scorching breath brushed against my ear, and from the corner of my eye, I saw the rising desire in his gaze. Mortals are wretched creatures. What they can see but cannot taste is always the most coveted. I withdrew my hand. Your Majesty, there must be propriety between ruler and subject. Disappointment flashed in his eyes as he curled his fingers, murmuring softly, "Just ruler and subject." 7. The imperial consort presented the divine medicine to the emperor, who was overjoyed and bestowed lavish rewards upon Wanhua Palace. But before the imperial consort could rejoice, Levi vomited blood incessantly and fainted on the spot. The imperial physicians trembled like quails, kneeling in unison, only to find Levi had stopped breathing, his body turning cold and stiff, clear signs of death. When the imperial guards arrived, the noble consort was still holding the bestowed jewels, asking her maid whether to make them into bracelets or hairpins. The tassels on her hairpins swayed violently, their jingling sound grating and unpleasant as she screamed herself hoarse. "Let go! What are you doing? Don't you dare touch me with your filthy hands. I am the emperor's woman, I am the noble consort," the leader said sternly. The Ying family's illegitimate daughter conspired to rebel, a crime punishable by death. The astonished imperial consort was imprisoned in the dungeon. Levi's face turned deathly pale, white as parchment. The imperial physician wiped sweat from his brow and tremblingly reported to the Empress Dowager that the emperor was beyond saving. The Empress Dowager smashed everything breakable in the room, her eyes bloodshot as she furiously cursed the crowd of incompetents. I stepped forward gracefully, claiming to know a bit about reviving the dead, and thus I became their savior once again. After the Empress Dowager retreated with her entourage in a bustling crowd, only Levi and I remained in the hall. I stared at him intently, my serpentine tail coiling around his neck. Just a slight squeeze would sever his head from his body. The one who smiled with crescent eyes, snuggled with me for warmth, had poor alcohol tolerance, loved to preach, had eyelashes like fluttering butterfly wings. My vibrant sister was killed by him. Overwhelming hatred surged in my heart, as reason slowly drained from the tip of my tail. Boom! A deafening thunderclap snapped me back to reality, and my serpent tail gradually loosened its grip around Levi's neck. "The time is not yet right. Levi isn't dead. That pill was a counterfeit death potion someone had substituted. It wasn't me, it was Dashiell. I just put the fake death potion in his hand and let him make his own decision. If he wanted the real Isabella, he had to kill this fake one, and I didn't have to do anything. Just wait for the drug to wear off and for Levi to wake up. During that time, I gave the jailers plenty of benefits to have them take good care of Isabella." Everyone believed Isabella's rebellion was a foregone conclusion, and her beheading was only a matter of time. They cheerfully accepted the silver, saying, "We won't fail your trust, my lord." When in the mood, I often sneaked into the prison to eavesdrop. The prisoners were all sharp-witted. Seeing me, they doubled their efforts to please me. The piercing screams nearly ruptured my eardrums. Even if she did crawl out of that prison, she'd likely be a madwoman by then. At first, she would still curse loudly, claiming to be the emperor's most beloved concubine, but later, her curses turned into feeble gasps and pleas for mercy. I lifted her blood-stained face with the tip of my shoe. "What a shame, I still prefer your defiant demeanor." She glared at me fiercely, as if wanting to devour me alive. "Once I get out of here, I swear I'll kill you." I kicked her in the face. "You wretch, how dare you stare at me? Even if I go out, what difference would it make?" 8. Levi woke up. I lay beside him, looking as if I'd been taking care of him tirelessly for a long time. He touched my face, his eyes curved with tenderness, full of pity. "Athena, you've lost so much weight." A clear tear slid down from the corner of my eye. My eyelids reddened. "Your Majesty, you've finally awakened." Upon learning that the medicine the imperial concubine offered him was poison, it was I who tirelessly used forbidden arts to revive him. His expression grew complex. He smiled at me and said, "Athena, you've saved me again. You truly are my lucky star." The real lucky star was denounced by him as a demon and cruelly killed, yet he worships me, a calamity, as his lucky star. "Oh Levi, you are truly blind to the truth." When Isabella was brought before Levi, she was covered in filth and reeked of a foul stench. Levi frowned and covered his nose with his sleeve. Isabella knelt on the ground, utterly disheveled, crying out her innocence with none of the dignity befitting an imperial consort. Levi rubbed his temples impatiently. "The matter has come to this, yet you still dare to quibble." At that moment, a eunuch announced that someone requested an audience. A royal physician knelt straight on the ground, stating that after repeated examinations, the elixir contained no poison. The truly toxic items were other objects in the chamber, and the imperial consort had been deliberately framed. This royal physician was the Ying family's doing. No matter how much they disliked Isabella, they wouldn't let this cash cow fall. Indeed, poison powder was found in Levi's temple. If we were to find out who planted the poison powder, it would take even more effort. The imperial concubine raised her eyebrows and glanced at me, curling the corners of her lips as if to say, "See, I've won. It's still too early to celebrate." I returned her smile, but she froze in place. After a long silence, Dashiell suddenly spoke. "Your Majesty, when I returned to the fire scene recently, I found this object inside." He signaled the maid beside him to present it, an exquisitely embroidered pouch with lifelike peach blossoms on it. The imperial consort was renowned for her embroidery skills, having once presented 100 flowers painting at Levi's birthday banquet, which was what made Levi truly notice her, and her most skilled embroidery was of peach blossoms. Levi recognized at a glance that this pouch was the imperial consort's personal belonging. Levi clenched the pouch tightly, his face ashen. "Imperial consort, do you have anything else to say?" The pouch was personally given by Isabella to Dashiell to placate him and ensure his unwavering loyalty in serving her. She collapsed to the ground, looking at Dashiell with utter disbelief, unable to comprehend why the person who once cherished her above all else would now stab her in the back, and this strike pierced straight through the heart. At this moment, I spoke calmly. "I believe this imperial physician and I once crossed paths in the noble consort's palace." The imperial physician trembled in fear, beads of sweat the size of peas rolling down his face. "Your Excellency jests. This humble official has never met you before." "Very well, perhaps my memory fails me. With just a little investigation, one could uncover the intricate connections between this imperial physician and the Ying family." Levi quickly realized he had been played by the noble consort and the Ying family, his gaze turning even colder as he looked at her. Isabella shook her head like a rattle drum, looking at me then at Dashiell, pointing at me and shouting, "It's her, it's this adulterous couple who conspired to frame me." Levi growled, "Who are you calling an adulterous couple?" Isabella was startled into a daze, then burst into tears like pear blossoms glistening with rain. "Your Majesty, my devotion to you is as clear as the sun and moon." In the past, Levi might have softened and listened to her excuses, but now the Ying family was secretly courting court officials in the imperial court, their influence growing ever stronger. In the harem, he doted solely on the noble consort, who allied with the Ying family to plot his demise. Soon the empire would bear the Ying surname, nor could one guarantee the Ying family harbored no rebellious intentions. Isabella had no way to defend herself. It was only after I pleaded with Levi that her life was spared. Though she was banished to the cold palace, at the gates of the cold palace, I raised an eyebrow at Dashiell. "I never thought you'd actually go through with it." Dashiell remained expressionless. "She's just an imposter, there's nothing to hesitate about." He glanced at me. "Don't forget what you promised me. After pulling the imposter out of Isabella's body, Dashiell will take the real Isabella away from the cold palace and flee far away. The medicinal ingredients needed to extract her are the soul-severing grass, snake gall, and dragon's heart blood. I already have the soul-severing grass and snake gall. Only this final ingredient is missing." Thud, thud, thud. Isabella desperately banged on the door, screaming wildly, "Let me out. I'm the imperial consort, not some lowly common girl you can bully at will. I'm the exalted imperial consort who climbed to this position with great difficulty. You can't treat me like this." The physical and mental torment became unbearable for Isabella, driving her to madness. "How noisy." I cast a minor spell to silence her. Dashiell lowered his gaze in contemplation, failing to notice the strangeness in Isabella's words. The corners of my lips curled slightly. "I truly wonder what expression he'll make when he learns the truth." 9. After nightfall, I walked barefoot on the stone steps of the violet grove, their surface cool beneath my feet as the evening breeze lifted the sheer gauze of my robes. I tilted my head to gaze at the peach tree, breathing in the fragrance of its blossoms like a spirit born beneath the moonlight. "Athena." I turned my head toward the sound, only to find Levi staring in a daze. The imperial consort who had shared his bed for years actually sought his death, tormented by bitterness and melancholy. He had drunk heavily, the flush on his cheeks still lingering. I approached him, fingertips lightly brushing his face. "Your Majesty has drunk so much." His eyes glazed with infatuation, his flushed cheeks growing even hotter. He held my hand and rubbed it against his palm. "Athena, do You care about me, I gave a distant smile. It's my duty as your subject. The strong aroma of wine lingered as he tightened his grip on my hand. I don't want us to be just ruler and subject. Then what does your majesty wish us to be? He wrapped his arm around my waist, his voice trembling. Husband and wife. I pushed against his chest with one hand, his eyes wounded. Don't refuse me. I lowered my lashes and relaxed the strength in my hand. Overjoyed, he swept me up in his arms and carried me straight to my palace. Just as he was about to reach Qingyue Palace, I called out to stop him, my hand clutched tightly at his chest. Your Majesty, don't go, he asked in confusion. What's wrong? I looked at him with tearful eyes. Don't go over there. He panicked. What's happening? You were fine just now. Why are you crying? He set me down and reached out to wipe my tears, but I suddenly fell to my knees with a thud. My voice choked with sobs. Your Majesty, I have failed you. I am guilty. He quickly helped me up, saying, get up first, then speak. I told him it wasn't the imperial consort who wanted to harm him, but the state preceptor. The grand preceptor had long harbored treasonous intentions. The elixir had been swapped by him. The fire in the hall of mental cultivation was also set by the grand preceptor, and the sachet found in the ashes was entirely fabricated. The noble consort was merely a scapegoat the grand preceptor prepared for himself. I was cursed by the grand preceptor and forced to obey his orders, but during our time together, I developed feelings for Levi. Several times, I risked being killed by the grand preceptor to save Levi. As I spoke, I coughed up another mouthful of blood, my face deathly pale. I forced a smile at Levi. Your Majesty, I have betrayed the grand preceptor. The curse is rebounding, and I fear my time is short. The grand preceptor is greedy. He ordered me to lead your Majesty to the Clear Moon Palace, where he lies in ambush, intending to strike you down with a single fatal blow. I hunched my back, trembling all over as blood continuously gushed from my mouth. He flusteredly supported me, his face filled with compassion. Athena, this isn't your fault. Disregarding the filth, he used his sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of my mouth. You've suffered. I never realized the grand preceptor harbored such intentions. I shook my head and offered a fragile smile. It's not bitter. Your servant's heart delights in your Majesty. Even if it meant dying for your Majesty, your servant would not hesitate. He pulled me into his embrace. Rest assured, this emperor won't let you die. 10. With my reminder, who between Levi and Dashiell will gain the upper hand. Levi arrived with a troop of imperial guards, while Dashiell would fight with all his might for the resurrection of his beloved. I went to the cold palace, where Isabella was huddled in a corner, looking deranged and constantly muttering to herself, I am the noble consort. Soon I will be the empress. I will be the most honored woman in the world. I really want to tear her mouth apart. I lay on the recliner, waiting for the victor's return. The sound of footsteps grew closer, and as I looked up, it was Dashiell. He was covered in wounds, barely able to stand steady while leaning against the doorframe. Clearly, it had been a fierce battle. Even outnumbered 10-1, he could still achieve a great victory. He must have used magic. The gap between humans and demons is vast, and the same goes for cultivators. If Dashiell had the slightest intention to kill him, he would be doomed without a doubt. Dashiell panted heavily, placing a glass vial filled with blood before me, dragon's heart blood. He knew I was behind this mischief, but at this point, he still needed my help. I dropped the serpent pearl into it, and the blood in the vial was quickly consumed. I handed him the serpent pearl. Just have her swallow this, and your Isabella will return. Okay. He took the snake elixir and staggered over to feed it to Isabella. Isabella's eyes widened as she clawed at her throat, convulsing and curling into a ball on the ground as if in unbearable agony. With hopeful eyes, Dashiell pleaded almost desperately, Isabella, come back. But things often go against our wishes, until Isabella took her last breath. There was no sign of his Isabella returning. Isabella's bloodshot eyes fixed intently on Dashiell, as if saying, Brother Dashiell, why did you kill me? Dashiell took 2 steps back, incredulous. Why is it like this? It shouldn't be this way. I burst out laughing. What are you laughing at? Laugh at your blindness. You personally caused the death of your beloved. How could a mere mortal withstand a millennium-old serpent's core? The dragon's heart blood was merely nourishment I intended for my sister's reformation. The lies shattered, revealing the naked truth. There was never a case of dual souls in one body. Didn't the deranged Isabella say it herself? She wasn't the illegitimate daughter, but the exalted imperial consort from beginning to end. The one inside that shell was always the Ying family's illegitimate daughter, Isabella. It was merely his childhood sweetheart growing fickle and changing her heart. Was it a drastic change in temperament after drowning, or did Dashiell simply refuse to believe her filthy core? Isabella loves no one, she only loves power. After another concubine born, daughter of the Ying family entered the palace and won the emperor's favor, the entire Ying household began to value her and revolve around her. That concubine-born daughter, who had once been bullied by Isabella, took this opportunity to push Isabella into the lake to settle old scores. After Isabella was rescued, even her own mother advised her to be magnanimous. At that moment, Isabella realized that even a concubine-born daughter could wield such power. Memories of past humiliations and oppressions flashed through her mind, overwhelming her with surging resentment and unwillingness. Forging a new Isabella, she thought, she must enter the palace. She must become the most revered woman in the entire realm. Only power could bring her everything she desired. She had several lovers behind Dashiell's back. Dashiell was merely the most reliable power she could lean on during her impoverished days. Once she was certain Dashiell wouldn't leave her, she grew disgusted with the act of pleasing him and couldn't be bothered to waste any more time on him. After all, the power she could now rely on most was the emperor himself. The past that Dashiell cherished meant nothing to her. She'd shared histories with many, and Dashiell was just one among them. She only began to care about Dashiell after realizing he could provide her value. Why would she remember some bygone past? Dashiell was merely the most valuable fish in her vast sea of admirers, yet poor Dashiell foolishly believed himself unique in her heart. If not for lovesickness, he might have made a fine cultivator. Dashiell's lips trembled as he asked me, "What are you saying?" I gazed at him with amused interest. The two souls in one body was nothing but a lie. How foolish of you to believe it so deeply. She has always been Isabella from the very beginning. You just refuse to admit that the one you love is a snob. I merely gave you a sliver of hope, and you eagerly took the bait. His eyes bulged with rage as he lunged at me like a madman. Lies. You demon, I'll kill you. I sidestepped, and he fell flat on the ground, never to rise again. Endless rage enveloped him, so much so that he failed to notice the abnormalities in his own body. I pinched his chin. Divine medicine, tastes good. After his bait and switch, he consumed the divine medicine himself. I had mixed something extra into it. Forcibly activating magic arts would rupture his liver and destroy all his meridians. This restraint only works on cultivators. The divine medicine was meant for the emperor. I did nothing. Dashiell brought this upon himself. After a fierce battle with Levi, he exhausted all his strength, his internal organs shattered. Now at death's door, only then did he belatedly realize that medicine was tainted. Like a dying fish thrashing pointlessly, he gasped, "Give Isabella back to me. You killed my Isabella, you demon, I'll kill you." 10,000 knelt in worship, proclaiming me their divine maiden. Again, he shouted, his voice gradually breaking into sobs. When he looked up again, tears were streaming down his face. He grabbed the hem of my clothes, his face a disgusting mess of tears and snot. "You can bring people back to life, right? Please, save Isabella." Isabella didn't know any better, she was just influenced by me. "Please spare her." I kicked him away. "When you killed my sister, did you ever show her any mercy?" I buried Dashiell and Isabella together. 11. Dashiell once said it was all my fault, that my sudden appearance caused the northern wars, leaving him an orphan. I don't understand. Would the world have been peaceful, free from disasters and wars if I hadn't appeared? Whether to wage war was their own choice, so why blame me for it? The snake core of my sister sensed my unusual state, flickering with golden light as it tried to comfort me. I clutched it tightly against my chest. "Sister, I miss you so much." Carrying the snake core, I hid deep in the ancient mountains. Whether it be 1,000 years or 10,000, I will always stay by her side. No one shall ever separate us again. The end. Story 2. My best friend got infected. To avoid becoming a monster myself, I abandoned her. In the dead of night, plagued by guilt, I quietly brought her some food. Yet, with a sinister smile, she pulled me into her embrace. "Humans need food, but you are my food." Humanity has been invaded by an unknown virus that strikes those who feel guilt for their misdeeds. The epidemic is severe. And the streets are filled with people who suddenly fall ill and can no longer move, vehicles can't get through, so most people walk. Occasionally, you might see someone on a bicycle, but they are very cautious, stopping and keeping their distance as soon as they see a pedestrian. My mom no longer has to worry about me not looking for cars when crossing the street. There are more infected people on the streets than yesterday, and I'm a bit scared. I keep my head down and walk quickly. I got up a bit late today and need to hurry to school to avoid being late, that is, until someone pats my shoulder heavily. One Maud, did you break your neck? You can't just walk into people like that. Turning around, I see Mary, first delighted, then nervously stepping back. Don't you know you shouldn't talk on the streets? She nonchalantly links her arm with mine. What does it matter? My conscience was eaten by a dog long ago. Her demeanor makes me laugh, and I pull her along towards school, with Mary by my side. The standing infected don't seem so frightening, but the stretch of road near the school still feels oppressively heavy. Those people look familiar. They must be parents who drop off their children, or vendors who usually sell things at the school gate. Our English teacher, Martha, stands across the street, staring at us with swollen, tearful eyes like a dead fish. Instinctively, I grip Mary's arm tighter. Look, Teacher Martha got hit too. She doesn't look back, pulling me to walk faster, panting a reminder. Don't think we're safe just because we're at school. Safe. Once inside the school, as soon as we enter the gate, we see the path leading to the teaching building packed with people, their conditions dreadful, their legs fused to the ground. Students who couldn't make it home after school yesterday. The epidemic has reached our campus, and we stand frozen. What are you doing? Get to your classroom now. A robust male voice startles me. I see the security guard approaching fast with his baton. Hasn't anyone told you that you can't just stand around outside? I'm usually a bit scared of him, and now, with the situation being what it is, I pull Mary away, but after a few steps, we're forced to stop. Mary isn't moving. A chill goes down my spine as I suppress my fear and turn back. Facing Mary's despairing look, she stands still, her arms stretched out stiffly by my pull, her feet as if welded to the ground, immovable. My tear ducts start working overtime, blurring the Mary before my eyes, and everything around becomes surreal. How I wish this were just a dream. I can't tell who let go of whose hand first, but as the security guard carries me into the classroom, I'm already sobbing convulsively. Mary, my best friend, always the one to console me during tough times. It's hard to believe that such a carefree girl could also succumb to the disease. There's no way classes can continue as normal, to avoid affecting the other students' emotions. The math teacher lets me rest in the office during the first period. It's not a good idea, because from the office window, I can see Mary downstairs. Although the teacher repeatedly reminds me not to approach the window, I can't help but sneak peeks outside. She's calmer than this morning, no longer crying. The sun slowly climbs over the rooftop, and the sunlight even makes her look somewhat beautiful. It's hard to imagine that such a vibrant life could be nearing its end so quickly. Having seen this so often, it no longer scares me. My biggest feeling now is regret. Regret for not having properly said goodbye to her, despite the repeated warnings from adults. I shouldn't talk to anyone I know who's infected, but I believe Mary wouldn't harm me. Even if I stayed with her all day, she wouldn't ask me for anything. While I was lost in thought at the windowsill, my collar was suddenly yanked with great force. After a moment of dizziness, I saw my mother's angry face. Slap. A harsh slap landed on my face. I stood there, head bowed and hand covering my cheek, too guilty to meet her eyes. What's wrong with you, child? Are you out of your mind? Tell me, are you sick? With each scolding, she struck my face and neck harder. The pain was burning, yet I still didn't dare to look up. Mrs. Maud, please calm down. Come sit over here. Thank heavens, my homeroom teacher Mrs. Martina finally came back to save me, but she was too frail, no match for my mother. After being pushed several times by my mom, she also became frantic and shouted, Mrs. Maud, she's your own daughter. You'll regret this after hitting her. Do you even know what regret means? My mother's hand stopped midair, and Mrs. Martina half pushed, half pulled her aside to rest. Mrs. Maud, I called you here because Maud and Mary are too close. They came to school hand in hand again this morning. My mother cried. What sins have I committed? What has the world come to? I secretly turned my head to look at the familiar figure on the playground. I too wanted to know, what has the world come to recently? A previously unknown virus began to spread quietly. The first case that caught attention was a man standing in the middle of the road during rush hour, causing severe traffic jams. When traffic police arrived, they couldn't communicate with him as he was highly agitated, continuously shouting, "My legs, my legs." When a police officer rolled up his trouser leg, he saw a horrifying sight. Hundreds of hair-thin bloodlines extended from the man's calf into the hard asphalt road. It was as if roots had grown from the man, anchoring him to the ground. This bizarre scene quickly attracted onlookers. When someone touched the thin lines on his leg, the man screamed as if being tortured. Initially, everyone thought it was a prank or performance art. The police enforced the law firmly, attempting to drag the man away. Despite his desperate pleas, his emotions became extremely agitated, but outnumbered. He was eventually lifted off the ground. The moment his feet left the earth, he screamed tragically and died with his eyes wide open. The body was taken for an autopsy, and the coroner said those bloodlines were mutated nerve cells. The man had died in excruciating pain. Before the incident could escalate, new cases began to appear worldwide. Some wandered the streets in their sleep, others suddenly couldn't walk on their way to work. Suddenly, the streets were filled with vegetative people. Some died of pain during the forced removal, others starved to death. Batch after batch of doctors and biologists couldn't determine the type of virus, find a cause of infection, detect the virus, or find any link between the infected. Suddenly, people became anxious. They started wearing masks and protective suits, and some even moved away from infected cities. But none of these measures worked. The epidemic spread at an unimaginable rate. As the number of cases slowly increased, experts noticed that most of the infected stuck on the roads would reflect on the worst deeds and events of their lives, endlessly confessing their past actions. A theory began to circulate online: if you commit a wrong, you'll get infected. Thus, this virus was affectionately called the angel virus. With its emergence, no one dared to do evil anymore. Those who did turned into vegetative people, dying from sun exposure or starvation. Society no longer needed laws or supervision. Everyone became a law-abiding good citizen. Some claimed this epidemic was purifying, weeding out the harmful elements of humanity. I completely disagree with such views. Mary is just a high school freshman. What did she do wrong? Just before the end of the first class, my mom hurried me out of school. She pulled me along so quickly that we almost stumbled as we passed by Mary. I still didn't get a chance to say goodbye to her. And what upset me more was that my mom had also confiscated my phone. She told me I couldn't go to school until after Mary was taken away. My mom is very assertive, and has always been the one in charge ever since I was little. I never dared to defy her. She doesn't understand me at all, nor does she care about how I feel. All I could do was lock myself in my bedroom, silently defying her in the only way I could. I didn't go out for lunch, and for dinner, Mom left the food at my door with a few words of instruction before she went to work. I listened at the door until I was sure the house was quiet, then I opened the door to bring the food in. Tonight's dinner was braised pork and blanched choy sum, both of which Mary loved. I barely managed a few bites before tears uncontrollably started falling again. How is Mary now? Is anyone taking her meals? I couldn't help feeling guilty. Even if I couldn't save her, I should have stayed with her, at least to help her through the initial fear and despair. But I did nothing. I was the first to let go of her hand. Yes, I let go first. I was so scared when I saw her unable to move. I instinctively shook off her hand. Even if the security guard hadn't come to pull me away, I would have run off on my own. A tingling sensation in the sole of my foot made me jump up instinctively, grabbing my foot and crying heartbreakingly. Was I also sick? Had I turned into one of those tree people rooted to the ground? It was only when a small mosquito bite began to swell that my blood started circulating again. I was really scared just now. I don't want to die, but I did something wrong and couldn't escape the condemnation of my conscience. Sooner or later, the disease would catch up with me. After a long hesitation, I made a bold decision to go see Mary. Bringing her some food might ease my conscience a bit. After nightfall, I heated up the dinner my mom left and carefully packed it in a thermal bag. Before leaving, I prepared thoroughly, turning up the volume in my headphones to the maximum so I couldn't hear what people around me were saying. I had never been out alone at night before and thought it would be frightening. But it turned out to be much better than during the day. The infected were all sleeping with their eyes closed, showing no reaction as I passed. The biggest challenge turned out to be climbing the fence. The school gates were locked, and it took a lot of effort to climb into the schoolyard. The situation there was similar to outside, everyone motionless with their eyes closed. I carefully navigated through the crowd and soon found Mary. Although we were best friends, it's wise to be cautious. I approached her from behind, handing her a note I had prepared beforehand, and gently woke her up. The streetlights in the school were bright enough for her to read the message on the note, which laid out 3 conditions. My name is Maud, and I've brought you some food, but you must agree to 3 things before I can give it to you. 1. Do not turn around. 2. Do not speak. 3. Do not make any requests in any form. If you can do these, nod your head. I can see you from behind. Mary nodded, so I took back the note and handed over the food box. I had initially planned to simply deliver a lovingly prepared meal and leave immediately, but seeing her devour the food so desperately made me feel sad. I gently took off my headphones and asked her quietly, "Have your parents visited you?" Her movements paused as she ate, then she gently shook her head. A lump formed in my throat, and without thinking, I blurted out, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" As soon as I said it, I regretted it. Nowadays, people are especially afraid of the infected, not because the infected spread the virus, but because they dread their requests for help. If you hear their plea and do nothing, it weighs on your conscience. Moreover, given the dire straits of the infected, it's hard for anyone to not feel guilty. Even a slight sense of guilt can give the virus a chance to infect you. Everyone knows that you shouldn't talk to an infected person you recognize. Even a 3-year-old knows this. But what was I doing? I had actually asked her if she needed help, Mary, if she had asked me to save her, or even to end her suffering. I know I couldn't have done it. The only outcome would be for me to stay and keep her company, but she said nothing, just shook her head and cried. Her pitiful appearance broke my heart. I pulled out a half-pack of tissues and went around to her front to wipe her tears, but I ended up crying even more miserably than she did. My crying woke the other infected individuals around us, and the area started to get restless. Mary put the headphones back on me, and we began to communicate in writing. "Mary, are you in pain? It hurts. I dare not move my legs. It's excruciating. Where the roots have grown, there's a sticky fluid leaking, sticking my shoes to the ground." I clutched the notebook for a long time before I managed to scrawl, "You have to hang in there. Any disease can be cured. As long as you're alive, there's hope. Maybe there will be a cure tomorrow." She nodded through her tears, and before I could write again, a security guard rushed over and dragged me into the booth. "Little girl, are you tired of living?" He then started calling my mother. I stood quietly to the side, waiting for him to calm down. I knew my mother wouldn't answer a call from a stranger, fearing it might be an infected person. After all, infected people can make requests over the phone too, and some people would do anything to stay alive, regardless of what happens to others. Indeed, she didn't pick up. After the guard tried several times, he gave up and turned to me, his face fierce with anger. I humbly apologized. "I'm sorry, I just felt so guilty and wanted to make amends. I promise this will be the last time. It won't happen again. Next time, do you even think you'll make it home again?" It seemed he was letting me go. I quickly nodded. "Yes, I know the way home. My house isn't far from the school. Are you going to escort me back?" "You wish. With everything going on, I certainly can't escort you." He sighed. "Just get going, and be careful on the way. I won't ask which class you're from. This broken school won't last much longer anyway." I bowed and ran off quickly, not forgetting to look back at Mary. She was also looking back at me. I waved at her and felt a sense of relief as I passed through the gate. I thought to myself, I might not get infected after all. Early the next morning, I was awakened by an alarm. The house was empty. My mom hadn't come home from work yet. The young couple next door were both crying and laughing, and the noise only got worse when I opened the window. Many people were hanging clothes and sheets out the window marked prominently with SOS. Not knowing what had happened, I rushed back inside to turn on the TV. All channels were broadcasting the same message. "Rescue teams have been dispatched to major communities in the city. Please cooperate with the rescue personnel for an orderly evacuation." Just then, there was a knock at the door. "Residents of this building, please take your valuables and gather downstairs." I had no doubt about the authenticity of the notice, especially in a time when a virus oversees human nature. Nobody dares to lie or harbor any evil thoughts, but I can't leave, because my mother hasn't returned yet. She took my phone, and if I were to leave with the rescue team, she would be frantic with worry. There's no safe place left in the city. Who knows how far away she might be? I want to be with her. Though my mother has a temper, she is, after all, the one who gave birth to me and raised me. I can't just leave her to fend for herself. The noise outside the door gradually subsided, and the sound of engines starting echoed from below. I ran to the window to see two container trucks slowly driving away, but the streets were full of the infected, and where the trucks passed, they brutally carved a bloodied path. The cheers of the saved slowly died down, replaced by the desperate wails of the infected. I don't know what hell looks like, but at this moment, the street below was a true purgatory on earth. Suddenly, I thought of Mary. Would she be treated the same, turned into an unrecognizable mass of flesh and blood under the wheels? Have the infected been abandoned? The stench of blood in the air was nauseating. I closed the window tightly and crawled under the covers, trying my best not to listen to the cries and roars outside. I fell into a restless sleep, and when I woke up, it was already evening, and my mother still hadn't returned. I peered out the window. Again, the road below had turned a dark red, and mutilated bodies were scattered everywhere along the sidewalk. Although some of the infected had miraculously survived, they were covered in blood. Some of them might have gone mad, emitting laughter and cries that were unlike any human sound. The noise irritated me, and my current situation made me uneasy. I somewhat regretted not leaving with the rescue team. Seeing such a scene made me even more afraid to go downstairs. But where could my mother be? I was very worried about her. After nightfall, my mother still hadn't returned. The wailing outside gradually subsided, and the entire city fell into a deathly silence. Thinking about the dead-filled streets during the day, I dared not go down. I hadn't eaten all day, and finally, my stomach began to growl. I went to the fridge and opened it, finding only half a bottle of jam. Not giving up, I opened the freezer, but it was empty. Where had all our food gone? Didn't my mom make braised pork and stir-fried vegetables last night? I rushed to the kitchen and rummaged through the cabinets top to bottom. Apart from some odd spices, there was nothing. Not even the sugar jar was spared. What was going on? Confused, I wanted to call my mom, but then remembered my phone had been taken away. Hoping for the best, I went to my mom's bedroom. Usually, if I did something wrong, she'd take my phone and carry it with her in her bag to prevent me from secretly taking it back while she was at work. But now, in these extraordinary times, could she really be at ease not being able to contact me? I searched her room and finally found my phone under the pillow. There was a string of missed calls, all from Mom. Unfortunately, my phone was on vibrate mode, and I hadn't heard anything through the thick door. I immediately unlocked my phone and called back, only to be greeted with the message, "Sorry, the phone you are calling is switched off." Disappointed, I hung up the phone, then noticed there was a text message, also from my mom. "Maud, whatever you do not go with the rescue vehicle." I was shocked. Why shouldn't I go with the rescue team? Could they have ulterior motives? Thinking about how they treated the infected, a chill ran down my spine. Holding the phone, I paused for a moment, then called Mary. The phone connected after just one ring, and a weak voice came through. "Maud, oh my goodness." I really wanted to tell her that I was hungry too. But now was not the time to discuss our basic needs. I urgently asked her, "Are you okay? Has the rescue team reached the school?" "Rescue team? What rescue team? Have they found a way to save us?" I'm not really sure what's happening. I didn't want to tell her about the horrific scenes I had witnessed that morning, so I quickly changed the subject. "Mary, why is your phone still working? I've been afraid to use it, worried that my parents wouldn't be able to find me." Her words saddened me. Mary didn't know yet that her parents had already left with the rescue team. They had given up on their daughter. I decided not to tell her this, and just hurriedly said, "I'm coming to find you." Before hanging up, I was going to find Mary. It was better to die with the infected than to wait around for death. At night, it indeed felt safer than during the day. The infected along the way were all asleep, motionless in the shadows. The city's electrical system had stopped working. It seemed that all uninfected people had evacuated. The city had been completely abandoned. Tonight, the moon was big and round, bright enough for me to see the way to the school. I had overestimated my ability to handle this. The smell of blood along the way was still strong, making me vomit a few times. I was completely drained. Only my willpower kept me moving step by step towards the school. Fortunately, the school was still a sanctuary, not yet overrun by the rescue team's trucks. I climbed over the school wall and easily found Mary. She looked terribly thin but still managed a weak smile at me, which I returned with a grimace that looked more like a cry. I raided the school's snack bar, grabbing a big bag of colorful snacks, and we started eating under the moonlight. Her school pants were torn, and her feet had turned into unsightly large tumors. Pretending to grab some snacks, I crouched down to secretly examine her feet. Her shoes had burst open from the mutated feet, surrounded by countless red bloodlines expanding like plant roots, spreading deeper and wider to absorb more nutrients. "Maud, stay and keep me company." I looked up, incredulous, and saw her gaunt face breaking into a bizarre, unsettling smile. I wanted to run, but it was too late. She grabbed my hair and stuffed it into her stomach. Something inside clung tightly to my hair, pulling painfully at my scalp, leaving me unable to break free. Exhausted from struggling, I just sat on the ground and cried, cursing Mary for being heartless. She wasn't annoyed. Instead, she giggled and comforted me. "Maud, what's wrong with being a tree? You can live a long life. You can't yet appreciate the feeling of being completely merged with nature. It's truly comforting." I had considered all possibilities, but I never expected Mary to lose her mind. A madman isn't held legally responsible for killing, especially not an infected one. Soon, we had finished all the snacks. The bags looked full, but there was hardly anything inside. I begged Mary to let me go back to the snack bar for more, but she just laughed at me. "Maud, remember what we learned in biology about grafting? Have you ever seen a grafted plant grow legs and run?" So I was just a grafted seedling, but I was hungry, and so was Mary, yet she said she wouldn't be hungry if she ate me. My hair was pulled tight, preventing me from turning around, and I didn't know what she had used to bind me, but it was clearly alive, and it was tightening gradually. Last night I could still kneel. Now I had to stay completely upright. It felt as if I was kneeling and confessing to all the infected present, but I wasn't the one who should be confessing. I have no idea how Mary managed to stand for days and nights on end. Just kneeling for one night left me with a sore back and aching waist. I dozed off against her, her body as rigid as a tree trunk, which only made the pain in my back worse. By nighttime, my scalp was painfully tugged, and sleep was impossible. Mary hadn't spoken in a long time. I guessed she might be asleep, or thinking about it differently. Perhaps the infected had become plant-like, unable to perform photosynthesis without the sun and thus were in a state of dormancy. Whatever the case, now was my chance to act. Thankfully, fearing I wouldn't find a place to eat when I left home, I had deliberately brought a lighter with me. Although I was reluctant to part with the hair I had grown for over 2 years, at that moment, survival was paramount. After striking the flint several times, a small flame finally leaped forth. My hair caught fire quickly, and my scalp felt the heat almost instantly. By the time my head was free from Mary, it was burning intensely. Fortunately, I was prepared and quickly doused my head with a bottle of mineral water I twisted open, which brought some relief. Before I could even celebrate surviving the ordeal, my collar was forcefully grabbed, and then my neck was tightly squeezed. Mary's angry voice rang in my ears, "Dare to burn me, and we'll go to hell together." The air was filled with suffocating smoke and stench. I couldn't stop coughing, and my back felt as if it was on fire. When I lit my hair, I had inadvertently set Mary on fire too. Now, unable to break free, it seemed I was living out the saying, not seeking to share the same birth, but willing to die on the same day. "My best friend, your passing is not in vain. At least you have me as your funeral companion." A sweet liquid flowed down my throat, and I groaned as I woke up. The first thing I saw was the enlarged face of our class leader, Wyatt. Wyatt was famously handsome at school, with a face that could leave anyone speechless. The last time I fell asleep during a study session, he had woken me up by coming just as close, which was embarrassingly awkward. Was this all a nightmare? Blushing, I sat up and saw the familiar classroom and desks. However, the numb or pained expressions on the faces around me reminded me that this was all real. "Maud, how are you feeling? Want to eat something?" I weakly shook my head and turned to look out the window, where a Tree burns silently. Mary, I'm sorry, forget it, don't look, it's no use, put this on. I was forcibly fitted with a headset, which scraped my scalp as it was put on, causing me to wince in pain and instinctively reach to take it off, but Wyatt firmly held my hand. He was speaking, but the music in the headset was too loud, I couldn't hear anything. He repeated himself a few times before understanding my confusion from my blank expression, then he took a pen and paper to write, "This is to prevent you from being misled by the infected outside. You must wear it 24 hours a day, even in your sleep, understand?" Seeing Wyatt's serious expression, I obediently nodded, then another question popped into my mind, and I quickly grabbed the pen and paper to write, "How did you guys end up here?" "It was the rescue team that placed us here. We need to be quarantined for a while to confirm that no one is infected before we can be taken away. We just saw you burning below from the window, so a few of us went down to rescue you." I smiled and nodded in thanks to him. That was the only good news I had received today. There were still healthy people in this city, and I was no longer alone. However, I couldn't fully rejoice just yet, because my mom's message still rings in my ears. "Do not go with the rescue team." Why can't I go with the rescue team? Could it be that they aren't really here to save people? In high school, there are no dormitories, and of course, no beds. Those of us who survived made do by piecing together tables to sleep on. As you can imagine, my sleep quality was poor. This was compounded by the deafening music blasting through my headphones, making me seriously suspect I had gone deaf. The food was terrible too, just some rock-hard rations accompanied by a limited supply of bottled water. I didn't even have the strength to climb off the tables, and by the looks of it, neither did anyone else, except for Wyatt, who still had the energy to distribute food and water to everyone. When he came over to me, besides the usual rations, he slipped me a note. I eagerly opened it, and it read, "I saw your mom when I was evacuating. She was taken away by the rescue team, so don't worry, you'll be reunited soon." My scalp tingled and I jumped off the table, chasing after him. "Where did you see my mom? Did she go with the rescue team willingly?" He was startled by my reaction, and it took him a moment to hand me a pen and paper. Communicating in writing was terribly slow, but fortunately, we figured everything out. My mom had been taken away near her workplace in the morning. She seemed reluctant, probably worried about me being home alone, but the rescuers didn't listen to her and just shoved her into a vehicle. Hearing that my mom was taken away brought me a slight sense of relief. At least she was alive and not infected. Like Wyatt said, maybe after the quarantine period, we could leave and reunite. Lost in thoughts of reuniting with my mom, I clutched Wyatt's note and lay back down on my designated table. Suddenly, a person in camouflage appeared at the door, carrying a large black bag. The others around didn't react much, seemingly used to this by now. He was here to change the batteries in our headsets. When he opened the black bag, a stack of size 5 batteries was revealed. He worked diligently and refused Wyatt's offer to help, changing the batteries one by himself. When he got to me, perhaps startled by my scabby scalp, he frowned with a worried look. The music stopped as he took the batteries out of my headset. Although my ears were still ringing, I could at least hear him speak. He asked, "What happened to your head? I'll bring you some medicine tomorrow." I smiled at him and then asked, "When can we get out of quarantine?" The new batteries were installed, and the blaring music started again. He moved on without pausing, and from his lip movements, I roughly made out that his answer was, "I don't know." Just when a spark of hope had ignited, it was cruelly extinguished. My mother's words surfaced again, questioning whether these rescuers could be trusted. Thinking it over, many doubts arose. In the face of such a mysterious virus, shouldn't the frontliners be medical staff, or at the very least, police or firefighters? Why are these people in camouflage, with no clear identities? And besides, we're still in quarantine, so why can they enter without any protective measures? I quietly wrote down my questions and showed them to Wyatt. His eyes widened in shock, his hands trembling uncontrollably as he held the note. Wyatt pulled me to an empty stairwell, took off his headset, and asked, "How come you're thinking so much? Do you know something I don't?" I shook my head and countered, "Is there something else?" He slumped to the ground as if deflated. "You came late and don't know. Originally, there were many people here. Every classroom was filled from top to bottom, then they were taken away in batches, including my parents. Now, only us kids are left." I was shocked. My mouth agape. Where did they all go? He gave a wry smile and shook his head. How would I know about such things? The adults always think we're too naive and never share anything with us. Suddenly, I remembered something and crouched in front of him, asking eagerly, when did you say you saw my mom being taken away? The morning after you didn't come to class. That can't be right. Are you sure you're not mistaken? He shook his head firmly. I'm absolutely sure. That morning, Mary fell ill. And then you didn't come to class either. We all wondered if you had fallen ill too. The next day, my mom wouldn't let me go to school. So it definitely happened then. Oh my, what have I discovered? My mom sent me a warning message the night after. But Wyatt said he saw my mom being taken away the morning of the next day. This means that the rescue times for Wyatt's area and our area were the same, while I was hesitating whether to wait for my mom to come back. She had already been taken away by the rescue team. It was nearly 10 hours after she was taken that she managed to send me a message warning me not to go with the rescue team. In those few hours, she was in a temporary quarantine set up by the rescue team. What on earth did she see there that made her tell me not to get on the rescue team's vehicle? I shared my findings with Wyatt, and he too was shocked. If my mom had said that, it suggested something was wrong with the rescue team. That meant that those who had already been taken away, including Wyatt's parents, were likely in danger. His expression turned particularly grim, and I felt just as terrible. We sat in silence for a long time before he sighed and said, let's go back. It's time for the meal distribution. I'll try to find out more today. Wait for my message. I nodded, put on my headphones, and we walked into the classroom one after the other. If you think about it carefully, you can spot many inconsistencies. For instance, where could so many outdated headsets come from, and why did none of them have an off switch? As long as the batteries were charged, they would continuously play at maximum volume. Clearly, these had been modified, but what were they making us wear these for? I didn't believe it was just to prevent us from hearing the infected outside speak. Those infected would sleep as soon as the sun set, and without external stimuli, they wouldn't make a sound at night. Even a monk would envy their routine. As evening approached, Wyatt handed me a note with just a brief sentence. Something's wrong here. Let's leave together at 11 p.m. tonight. I wanted to ask him how many people the word us on the note referred to, but by the time I looked up from the note, he had already disappeared. Wyatt was the only one allowed downstairs, and he was responsible for everyone's meals in the building. Compared to us, he surely had better access to internal information, right? So, I chose to trust him. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a nudge and saw a room full of bright eyes. It turned out that by us, Wyatt meant all of us. Under his lead, we took whatever food and water we had and followed one another down the stairs. The infected downstairs had mostly transformed, now standing motionless with their eyes closed under the moonlight, truly resembling trees. I took off my headset and ran to catch up with Wyatt, who was leading the way. What did you find out? Wyatt looked around nervously, his eyes full of tension. He reached out to help me put my headset back on, but I quickly took his off as well. Don't worry, these infected will sleep at night. He looked around guiltily before frowning and asking me, what are you trying to do? I repeated my earlier question. What did you find out? He started to get impatient. What do you mean, find out? They're here to rescue us. Let's get back to the group before they start counting and mess up the numbers. I stood there, struck by his words, as if struck by lightning. Weren't we supposed to run away? Why did we get back in the car? Could it be that Wyatt has been bought off? I no longer have time to think about this. My intuition tells me that I must not get on the rescue team's container truck. Looking back, I see a continual stream of people leaving the building, their expressions blank, looking like zombies under the moonlight. Going back against the crowd would be too conspicuous. The only option is to hide in the convenience store. The school's convenience store has a separate entrance on the side of the academic building. Hiding there until everyone leaves might still offer a chance to escape. So, crouching down, I dashed to the base of the wall and, using the shadow of the perimeter wall for cover, I quickly make my way towards the convenience store. I keep my head down, focusing all my attention on my feet, thinking to move faster and faster. Unexpectedly, there is someone standing by the wall. I crash into them, and due to the inertia, we both fall over. The person looks young, somewhat familiar, probably a senior student from the upper grades. My heart races to my throat. I continuously bow in apology and place my finger on my lips, pleading for silence. But how easy is it really to buy someone's silence? With a sinister laugh, he takes off his headphones and yells louder than the music that had been playing. Someone is trying to escape, someone wants to die, let everyone die, it will make a hero in 18 years, ha ha ha. His voice is so loud, it makes my heart tremble, but after a while, when there's no response, I realize that everyone around has their headsets on and can't hear his rant. His eyes gleaming with madness, he lunges forward, grabs my legs, and starts dragging me towards the group, ranting, "If we are to die, let's die together. It'll be easier to gather a table for a game of cards in the underworld." I'm petrified, my back painfully scraping the ground. Lacking the strength to get up as I sweat profusely, and cries of agony begin to fill the air. The crowd becomes chaotic, some running out, others running back in, everyone is colliding, falling, and getting up to run again. The scene spirals out of control, and I curl up as small as possible, praying that the panicked people don't step on my face. Screams are everywhere, reminiscent of the day the rescue convoy ran over the infected, a real hell on earth. Blood pools into rivulets on the ground. And as the hurried footsteps begin to wane, I dare to slowly sit up. What a horrifying scene it is. The mad seniors shouting has awakened the infected, who start hunting as soon as they open their eyes. They grab any living thing within reach, scratching and biting like wild beasts, eagerly devouring the healthy. The mad senior is not far from me, each of his arms fiercely gripped by an infected, munching on them as if they were carrots. One has already bitten down to his wrist, the other still gnawing at his palm. Blood sprays like a fountain, drenching both infected in red. More shocking than the most horrifying movie, the mad senior's head droops lifelessly, seemingly unconscious. I almost envy him. My gall is nearly vomited out, but why can't I faint? Several beams of flashlight shine through the school's gate, illuminating this hell on earth as bright as day. These are special flashlights, so bright that I can hardly open my eyes. The screams continue by my ears, the air thick with the stench of blood making me nauseous. I think I'm about to die. I even find myself wishing for death to come quickly, to end my torment. A loudspeaker at the gate shouts, "Crawl out, keep your stomachs as close to the ground as possible. Their legs have vegetated, they can't bend at the waist, keep your center of gravity low." The voice continues, encouraging me to crawl bit by bit towards the gate. Blood has pooled into rivers, and I crawl through this river of blood, inching forward. By the time I reached the door, my clothes were completely soaked in blood. Someone reached through the gate and dragged me out like a dead dog. It was only when I was behind the flashlights that I realized the person who had been encouraging me to survive was actually the rescue team. Wyatt took off his jacket and draped it over me, but I was ungrateful and indifferently threw the jacket to the ground, as someone from the rescue team helped me onto a container. It was very dark inside. Only a bit of moonlight came through the door. Their eyes, shiny and filled with terror, stared at me. The person next to me kept shrinking back. I think they were scared off by the smell of blood on me. Fortunately, several more blood-soaked people boarded, and we sat huddled with our knees, silent, enduring the journey to our destination. By the time we disembarked, the blood on my body had congealed into clumps, and bits of dried blood flaked off whenever I moved slightly. I must have looked frightening because people hurried their steps when they passed by me. The blood-soaked clothes that had dried were stiff and uncomfortable, making my skin itch and ache. After enduring the journey, we reached what looked like a long-abandoned hospital, and I rushed into the restroom. Only after I put on the clothes provided by a kind stranger did I feel alive again. As I walked through the corridor to the dining hall, I saw many people in the courtyard shouting loudly. Those people are mad, driven insane by the music in their headphones. I turned to see Wyatt. I didn't want to talk to him, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't help but ask, driven mad by what? The music in our headsets, designed by psychologists, it was meant to use psychological suggestion and hypnosis to erase feelings of guilt, but unfortunately, it failed. His gaze turned towards the window, and I immediately understood what he meant by failure. I also felt relieved that I hadn't worn the headset long enough to turn into one of those screaming people outside. As I stared out the window, lost in thought, Wyatt continued, "When I went to get food, I sneaked up to the command vehicle and saw several people in lab coats monitoring us through security cameras. They couldn't hide it anymore and told me everything. Sorry, there wasn't time to explain to you. I pressed him incredulously. Is it that simple? Wyatt nodded helplessly. They had gradually noticed people losing their minds, realizing this treatment was ineffective and were preparing to terminate the experiment. The word experiment stung me. Were we just lab rats? Our conversation was interrupted by the smell of food. God knows how many days it had been since I had a proper meal. The aroma instantly awakened my taste buds. Nothing was more important than filling my stomach. I carried a plate piled high with food, weaving through the seats. The dining hall was packed, and there was nowhere to join a table. Suddenly, I stopped dead in my tracks, unable to move, because I saw my mother, still in her old clothes, sitting in a corner eating slowly, her figure blurred as I burst into tears and ran to her, calling out, "Mom!" All the hardships and pain I had endured found an outlet, and I sobbed uncontrollably on her lap until Wyatt found me and helped me up. I took the tissue he offered and wiped away my tears and runny nose, surprised to find that my mother was still eating. Her plate was nearly empty, which meant she had continued eating while I cried on her. How could this be? She was my mother, the one I had been separated from for days. Wyatt tugged at my sleeve, signaling me to look around. Only then did I notice that everyone was off. They were all heads down, eating, completely uninterested in the melodrama of a mother and daughter reunion, not even glancing up at me. Something isn't right here. We should leave, Wyatt whispered. I glared at him. You wanted to come, and now you want to leave. If you want to leave, you leave. I'm not going. Before he could respond, I threw myself back into my mother's arms. Mom, it's Maud. Look at me. What's wrong with you? My mom pulled out a tissue to wipe her mouth and smiled at me. Oh, it's Maud. You're here too. Have you eaten yet? I've finished my meal. Come sit with me. After she spoke, she gently pushed me away and walked towards the exit. I stood frozen, feeling for the first time in my life that I had mistaken someone else for my mother. This woman wasn't my mom, although she wore the same face. My real mom cared deeply about me. Even if I accidentally hurt my foot with a stool, she'd inspect it closely after removing my socks. I was her only kin. How could she be so indifferent, so unfamiliar? It wasn't until her figure disappeared into the exit that I snapped back to reality and chased after her. I finally caught up with her in the lounge on the second floor. She stood by the door, whispering to someone in camouflage. They occasionally glanced over at me, which made me uncomfortable. When the person in camouflage finally left, I couldn't wait to approach her. Mom, it's me. Have you forgotten about me? My mom held my face and kissed it repeatedly, tenderly replying, how could I forget, my silly child. Dr. Lee said I should treat you better. From tonight, you'll sleep with me. As she turned to prepare the bed, I stood at the doorway, unsure what to do. She had kissed me. It had been years since she had done that, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I felt all of this was taught by the person in camouflage. She had no real affection for me. We were strangers. Mom, what has happened to you? I didn't spend much time with my mom, except for meals and sleep, as she spent most of her time working outside. Behind the hospital, a large piece of wasteland had been cultivated, sprouting seedlings. It seemed they intended for us to stay here permanently, during meals and brief rest periods. I tried to confirm her identity by asking about things only the two of us knew. She could answer smoothly every time. This left me confused again, as if the person in front of me was indeed my mom, just not as loving as before. What had happened to my mom? This question troubled me for a long time, affecting how I treated Wyatt. One day, Wyatt approached me. Maud, something is really off here. Let's escape together. I shook my head and refused. Maud, Wright is infected. I saw him frozen in the vegetable garden. Then they came with a bulldozer and took him away. I still shook my head. He grabbed my shoulders anxiously. What's wrong with you? Are you even listening to me? Many children are missing. A lot. I coldly shrugged off his hands and firmly refused. If you want to leave, then go. I'm not going anywhere. My mom is still here. I walked away without looking back, but I could still hear him shouting behind me. She's not your mom anymore. Wake up, Mom. Is she no longer my mom? Later, Wyatt disappeared too. I didn't know if he had escaped or been infected. Each day, children were getting infected, and everyone seemed indifferent, making me numb as well. Finally, the day for surgery came. Along with 11 other children, I was taken to the basement. Since my scalp was injured and couldn't grow hair, I skipped the step of shaving my head and was the first to be led into the surgery room. I was strapped to the operating table when they were still preparing the surgical instruments. A person dressed as a doctor approached me and asked, "Little girl, are you nervous?" I nodded and asked, "When will you administer the anesthesia?" He extended his broad, warm hand to gently touch my bald head and kindly replied, "There's no need for anesthesia, most brain surgeries don't require it." I was shocked and my mouth fell open. "No anesthesia? You're going to cut into my brain while I'm still awake? Haha, you've misunderstood. We don't need to make an incision." He pulled down his mask, made a funny face at me, and continued, "We just need a long spike, which we'll insert gently through your nostril." I became even more frightened and clutched the corner of his coat as I anxiously asked, "Will I die then?" "Of course not. Let me tell you a secret. I've performed this surgery thousands of times and have never once failed." "Does it really only hurt for a moment?" "To be precise, it won't hurt at all. It'll feel like having a severe cold or sand in your eyes." Relieved, I let go of his coat as he went to prepare and put on his gloves. I stared at the shadowless lamp overhead, and my thoughts drifted back to the night I escaped from school. That night was a narrow escape from death, and I had a feeling that after today's surgery, it would be like being reborn, but I was still a little nervous. I have this problem where I get very talkative when I'm nervous, and it was even worse when he inserted the shiny spike into my nose. "Doctor, why do I need this surgery? Have I been infected too?" "Not yet. But if we don't operate, we'll all be infected sooner or later." "Did you also undergo the surgery?" "Yes, I was among the first batch to undergo it. One of my colleagues lost his hearing because of the surgery, but that hasn't stopped him from being a good doctor." My palms began to sweat, but I knew I couldn't escape it, so I quickly changed the subject. "Doctor, have you performed surgery on my mom too? She seems different than before." "I don't know your mother, but given your age, it's likely someone has already operated on her." After the surgery, people do change somewhat, mainly in how they express emotions. They might seem a bit detached. I excitedly nodded. "Yes, detached. It's like I can't feel her love anymore." "Don't move," he sternly reprimanded me. "We've conducted research, and this disease is caused by a viral brain disorder that triggers abnormal nerve growth. The affected brain tissue is responsible for emotions. So if humans experience persistent emotional fluctuations, such as sadness or guilt, it can easily trigger the condition." "So, you're removing brain tissue, but why did all the adults undergo surgery first, and only now it's our turn?" "The children, most of my friends who escaped with me have almost all died, because your brains are still developing and are more complex than those of adults. If adults don't fare well in the surgery, the worst that can happen is they become blind or deaf, adding a burden to society. But it's not the same with you children. You are the future of humanity, so we must be extra cautious and careful." Clang, the sound of a hammer striking the spike resonated as I felt it penetrate my crown, giving me a sudden enlightening sensation. "So, just by having this surgery, we won't get infected, like how diabetic patients need to amputate infected feet or gallstone patients need their gallbladders removed." "Exactly." He leaned in closer to look at my face. "Now, describe your mother to me." "My mom used to have a really bad temper, but I don't blame her. She actually had it quite tough." Clang, ouch. "She's actually very fragile inside, and can only defend herself by being aggressive and domineering." Clang, anything else? "Well, she's just a woman. My mother is quite ordinary." Of course, all mothers are great in the same